Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is story about what if Naruto learns Hiraishin during training trip part 1. Before I start, please do support for more amazing content and comments for part 2. Do consider to subscribe my channel and share my video to your friends and check out the description as well. Let's start the video. I've failed. Everything I've worked for has all been for nothing. I couldn't stop my best friend. I couldn't keep my promise. I couldn't keep my Nindo. A blonde teen laid on his bed in his apartment, tears trailing down his whisker-marked cheeks. The betrayal of his best friend Uchiha Sasuke hit him hard. But not being able to stop him and keep his promise to Sakura was even harder to bear. Staring at the ceiling of his apartment, his mind retold the events that took place right after his unsuccessful return from his mission. His thoughts once again fell on a pink-haired kunoichi. The look of disappointment on her face when he came back from the retrieval mission empty-handed shattered him. Flashback. Naruto wakes up to the sights of a white room and a smell of disinfectant. He looks around to find himself a hospital bed, with Shizen looking over him. Shizen Nei-chan. She looks up and smiles at Naruto stirring from his slumber. Rising from her seat, she quickly does a checkup. Finding everything stable, she looks at Naruto and smiles. He gives his own foxy grin back to her, then it quickly fades as memories of the failed retrieval comes back to him. This sudden change didn't go unnoticed by Shizen. Naruto-kun, what's wrong? Sasuke, I've failed him. Sakura-chan, I failed her. Shizen was about to say something but was interrupted when a door opened and revealed a kunoichi with pink hair. Haruno Sakura entered the room and laid her eyes on Naruto, whose face was downcast. Not wasting time, she walks up to him and asks a question that devastates the blonde. Naruto, where's Sasuke-kun? Naruto doesn't reply. His eyes are covered by his unruly hair, hides as not to show the tears ready to fall. Where's Sasuke-kun? Naruto, answer me. The said blonde remained silent, his fist clenching his bed sheets and his body shaking. Seeing this, Cherry Blossom Kunoichi received her answer. He's not here, is he? She choked. Hot tears ran down her face. You didn't bring him back, did you? Still Naruto doesn't reply. You failed me, you broke your promise. I can't believe you, Naruto. You dope. You're nothing but a failure. Shizen, not liking what she heard, turns to her and yells, that's enough, Sakura. Naruto turns his head and sees the crying face of Sakura. The look of disappointment and hurt on her facade was killing him. Gomen, Sakura-chan. But she didn't hear any of it as she ran out of the room crying, turning the heads of doctors and nurses as she runs by. Shizen casts a worried look at Naruto, but his facade was hidden by his hair. Then suddenly hot tears rolled down his cheeks, his body shaking even more and his knuckles turning white as his fist tightens. Nei-chan, am I a failure? Aren't I nothing but a... He was interrupted by a slap from Shizen, bringing him out of his sobbing state. The teen rubbed his left cheek and stared at Shizen, who began to tear up. Don't you ever say that, don't you dare say that you're a failure, because you're not. You tried your hardest, and that's all anyone can ask of you. The medic Nin wraps her arms around the blonde, cradling him as they cry together. End flashback. The memory of that day was burned in his memory. It was the first time he's tasted failure, and its bitterness was lingering in his mouth. As he replayed the memory in his head, he suddenly felt an emotion that he didn't think he could have against his teammates, an emotion only reserved for his enemies, the feeling of anger. Anger and hatred, all from that one incident. As he once again played the memory in his mind on the events of the hospital, his mind began to work a mile a minute, replaying all the details. It was that incident in the hospital that showed him how foolish he was and his teammates. Sasuke was nothing but a fool out for power, and used everything as a stepping stone to achieve his goal of killing Itachi. Sakura was a fool who can only see things at face value, who uses everyone as a stepping stone to achieve her goal of getting Sasuke. He rose from his bed and entered his bathroom and washed the dried tears from his face. As he stared at the flowing water in his sink, he came to a realization. He too was a fool that thought that Sakura was his world, a fool that was naive of his former best friend's motives, a fool for not realizing that he was just being used by the two people of his team. He gave them everything he could give and yet received nothing from them, no praise nor compassion. He was being played a fool by the ones he thought of as two of his precious people. Precious people. Sandai Mojaizen, Tsunade, Jiraiya, Shizen, Kakashi, Team 8, Team 10, Team Guy, the Konohamaru Corps, the Sand siblings. They were his precious people, right? They wouldn't hurt him like Sakura and Sasuke did, right? They wouldn't, would they? The blonde couldn't help but give a sad smile as he watched his reflection through the flowing water of his sink. One betrayal from Sasuke, team, one betrayal from Sakura, and here I am questioning my loyalty and trusts of others pitiful. Clenching his fists as anger sparked once again, he wasn't just angry, he was furious. Furious at Sasuke for leaving. Furious at Sakura for her selfishness and narrow mind. But most importantly, he was furious at himself, for his failure and for being naive. Gritting his teeth at his conclusion, he raised his right fist and slammed it at the bathroom mirror, shattering it. Bringing his right hand to his face, he saw his knuckles bleeding and his fingers trembling. Never. Red Churka begun to mend his wounds. Never again. The torn flesh was melding together. I will. The wounds disappeared and showed flawless flesh as he clenched his right hand to a fist. Make sure that this will never happen again, that I will not let any more of my precious people suffer ever again. Determination could be seen in his face as his mask of smiles had begun to crumble. He then stared at his reflection through his shattered mirror and received a shock that would change his life as a ninja. His reflection was normal, but one thing stood out: his eyes. Instead of his cerulean blue, his reflection showed crimson eyes, not that of the Kyuubi's. This was different. Instead of slits, the eyes had two spinning toma marks. The sight of those eyes made him lose his words. These were the eyes that Konoha praised so dearly, the accursed Dijitsu that was the cause of his pain. One word left his gaping mouth. Sharingan. Naruto was mad. No, he was beyond mad, he was pissed. The blonde teen was slumped against the west gate of Konoha waiting for Jiraiya for the training trip. He was told by the said pervert that he would be trained under his tutelage for a duration of 2 to 3 years. Though the mention of training did sound enticing, waiting for the pervert at midnight, who was already late by 2 hours, was testing his patience. Not that he had much patience to begin with, mind you. Staring at the night sky, his mind wandered back to the conversation he had with Kyuubi about the Sharingan. Flashback. Reeling from his shock upon seeing him having the Sharingan, our blonde hero quickly dashes out his bathroom. Ramen, need ramen. Quickly heating up a cup of miso ramen, Naruto settles himself down on, slurping ramen, while his mind tries to make sense of things. Minutes pass, and after finishing his 4th cup of ramen, he had begun to settle down. Okay, here I am, Uzumaki Naruto, with the Sharingan Kyuso. This doesn't make sense. I'm an Uchiha? I'm related to Sasuke team? After a good half an hour of rhetorical questions and cursing, the blonde nin relaxes himself before bursting out in frustration again. Kyuso! Why did this have to be so complicated? He yelled as he raised his fist to the ceiling. Frustration etching into him, he slams his palms with enough force that broke part of his table, taking out a good chunk of the said table, which isn't exactly cheap. Ah! Good going, Naruto no baka! Slapping himself for his stupidity. That's when he smelled blood. Looking at his left palm, he notices a cut that was caused most likely by wooden splinters. Crimson Churka emerged once again, healing the injury, and that's where an idea hit him. The Kyuubi, surely he would have answers, right? Having nothing to lose, he sits on his bed and loosens himself up before calming his mind into meditation. Feeling himself fall into darkness, he opens his eyes. Everything was dark and damp, a sewer-like passage laid before him. Naruto looks around, and feels a presence drawing him forward. Kyuubi. After walking for minutes, he spies a dark prison with a paper in the middle with the kanji for seal. Before he was able to take another step, a powerful voice stopped the blonde in his tracks. Who enters my domain? Kyuubi's voice echoed and rumbled around the area as a silhouette of a giant fox face enters Naruto's view. Of course, our blonde dynamite, being the #1 surprising ninja, doesn't disappoint us with his reaction. Having a good look at the fox before him, our idiotic nin says something completely idiotic. Me duh. Idiotic indeed, by normal shinobi standards. Looking at the fox, Naruto could have sworn he saw the kitsune's sweat drop in his cage. Stepping closer to the cage, he locks eyes with the fox. Look, I came here to ask a question. And would that question be related to the fact that you have the Sharingan? The fox retorted. You knew? Being taken aback. Kid, I'm sealed in your body, I live in your body, I heal your body. So I should be able to know what's going on in your body. Then you should be able to tell me why I have the Sharingan. Anxiety clear in his voice. Unconsciously activating the Sharingan and locking eyes with the Kyuubi. Why do I have it? Why now of all times? Am I an Uchiha? Am I really related to Sasuke team? Wait, if I have it, does it mean I'm related to Itachi team too? Silence, Kyuubi roared. If you don't already know, having the Sharingan means you are of Uchiha descent. From what I can gather from your DNA, it came from your mother. Hearing the word mother, Naruto loses his anxiety and the Sharingan withdraws, Quickly he asks in a hopeful tone, "You know my parents?" Seeing the change of emotion, the fox gives a quick reply, "I am not liable to say." "What? What do you mean you're not liable to say?" Anger clearly seen on him as once again his Sharingan appeared and spinning frantically. Kyuubi, taken by surprise of the second sudden appearance of the blazing Sharingan, quickly releases a massive pulse of killing intent. Naruto, feeling this, suddenly drops to his knees, but his eyes still retained the Sharingan, which was focused on the fox. "Talk to that perverted Sannin, he should be able to answer your question. Now go, I'm tired from lending you a good amount of my chakra during your little escapade with that Uchiha. A woman does need her sleep." That being said, Kyuubi retreats further down to her cage. Naruto's sweat drops at this. A woman's sleep, Kyuubi right. End flashback. Erosen and Naruto mused as he stared at the cloudless night sky. After another half hour, he spied two figures emerging from the dark streets of Konoha. A blonde woman with large breasts that would make a watermelon jealous, and a silver-haired man with a helmet that has the kanji for oil with the summoning scroll for frogs strapped on his back horizontally. Che. About time. Ma Naruto, as Jiraiya waves his hands in dismissal, "We would have gotten here sooner if Myun-chan, Breast-chan, here didn't invite me for sake." A spike in killer intent from Tsunade was all it took to stop the Sannin from his spot, his skin considerably paling as he slowly turns his head to the direction of the killing intent. Jiraiya. Veins clearly pulsing on her forehead as she slowly walks towards him, a dark aura surrounding the blonde Hokage. "Tsunade, calm down, I didn't mean YAHH." Jiraiya suddenly flew to the skies at speeds that would make Guy jealous, his form quickly disappearing from view until all that was left was a twinkle in the sky. Naruto paled at the sight. Even with the time he spent with Tsunade, watching her titanic strength in action was still a sight to behold. The Godain then held up 5 fingers, which confused Naruto until she began a countdown. 5. A small twinkle in the sky reappeared. 4. The form of a person suddenly came into view. 3. A girlish shriek could be faintly heard as the silhouette of the Sannin became noticeable. 2. Jiraiya's face was now visible, as was the tears coming down his face, and the girlish shrieks became banshee wails and strings of curses. 1. A crash could be heard throughout the streets, surprisingly, though the population remained asleep. Dust was coming from a crater from where Jiraiya fell, the sounds of bones crunching emanating from the hole along with groans of pain. Ignoring this, Tsunade walks to Naruto, who gulped at the sight. Wrapping her arms around the other blonde, Tsunade leans to his ears. "I'll be seeing you, Gaki. Don't let this pervert get to you or you'll end up like him, understand?" she says in a sickly sweet voice. Naruto couldn't help but nod vigorously, although not being drawn to the ways of the pervert, while in the company of a super pervert was a bit tougher than the path to Hokage at the moment. Composing himself for a moment, Naruto looks up at Tsunade's worried face. "Better be ready for me, Bachan. When I return, I'll take of your seat of Hokage before you know it." Naruto gave his foxy grin to Tsunade, who smiled in return. "Alright, Bakagaki, enough with the goodbyes, let's go," Jiraiya yelled as he walked out of the crater, surprisingly healed and unscathed. Tsunade casts a glare at the Sannin that makes him pale once again. "Jiraiya," Tsunade said in an icy voice, "I warn you, just like I did Naruto, turn him into a pervert, and I'll ensure that you would never be able to reproduce." Jiraiya was sweating bullets as he felt the temperature suddenly drop upon hearing those words. "You understood, Myun-chan." The Gamma Sannin suddenly grabbed Naruto's right arm and used Shunshin before Tsunade was able to either grab him and tear him apart for his insult, or grab him and use him for experimental medical jutsus. Either case would have resulted in doom for his reproductive organs. After 2 hours of tree hopping, they came near the fire/wind country border. Jiraiya stops and motions Naruto to a clearing. "We set up camp here, set up the tents while I go for food." Before Jiraiya could take a step, Naruto grabs his right shoulder with a tight grip. "Matt, Erosen and Matt." Seeing the downcast face of the blonde made him worry. "What's wrong, Naruto?" Silence. Naruto stayed there, gripping Jiraiya's shoulder tighter. The Sannin wasn't able to comprehend his problem because his face was emotionless, and his eyes were covered by his blonde locks. Erosen and I want his already tight grip became tighter that Jiraiya began to wince. "What do you want, Gaki?" Worry and curiosity in the pervert's voice. He was met with silence once again, but was broken by a gust of wind that blew through the trees as Naruto slowly raises his head to Jiraiya. "I want answers." His eyes opened and revealed his 2 Tomo Sharingan. Jiraiya's eyes widened and his mouth ageti. "And I expect it right now," giving a tone of finality. As Jiraiya looks at Naruto, whose Sharingan was blazing, one thought came to the Gamma Sennin. Well shit. It was a mundane, beautiful day at Konoha, birds chirping, not a cloud in the sky, villagers and tourists all smiling and chatting, eruptions coming from the distance by jutsus, and the most notable thing of this wonderful day would be two green blurs having laps outside the village walls while spouting of sentences that all dealt with the flames of youth. Yes, it was a normal day, for Konoha standards that is. A young man in his late teen years was silently walking through the dense forests of Konoha, lost in his thoughts as he approached his destination. After minutes of walking, he saw in the distance the outline of his destination, the west gate of Konohagakure. Feeling a familiar presence near him, the teen abruptly stopped and looked at a high tree branch where the Churka's signature emanated from. There he saw an older, silver-haired man, who stared at him emotionlessly. The two nin's eyes locked together before smiling at each other. The older, silver-haired nin was a man in his 50s with a maturity that can range from a wise sage to a hormone-raging teen. It was the one and only pervert of the Sanins and beloved author of the infamous Aika Aika series, the Gamma Sennin, Jiraiya. The other man was considerably younger, around in his late mid-teen years. Blonde, unruly spiky hair that has grown over the years, especially now that he has bangs that occasionally cover his eyes, even with his leaf headband holding up the hair, and now also has a small ponytail tied at the back of his head, deep sapphire eyes that one could drown into, and 3 whisker marks on each cheek. All of these traits slapped onto a handsome face of the once known number 1 surprising ninja, Uzumaki Naruto. It's been a while, Erosenin, a year since we've parted ways, right? Quite a peaceful year too. The blonde smirked at the Sanin's irritated face. Che. Kids these days, no respect for their elders. Jiraiya sneered. Then he turned to Naruto and noticed the changes in him and his clothing. Time has been kind to Naruto, whose fashion sense was significantly better than last he was seen. Ridding himself of his horrendous orange monster of an outfit, our blonde teen now sports black shinobi pants that stretches down and hugs at the ankles, accompanied by black shinobi sandals. His upper body consists of a dark blue, skin-tight turtleneck sleeveless shirt, similar to a wife beater/undershirt and turtleneck crossover, showing his well-toned body. Black arm bracers that stretches from the wrists and extends near the shoulders, nearly covering his whole arm. Finishing off his outfit was a sapphire blue robe-like cape. Design is similar to Yandame Hokage's, with a crimson spiral on the center of the back. I see you got rid of your outfit that practically said kill me. I'm an idiot. If it was up to me, I would have burned those horrendous orange rags you call clothing the first time I met you. Naruto couldn't help but scratch the back of his head and grin in embarrassment. After a moment he became serious. So how did Tsunade Bacon take the news of us splitting up last year? At first she threatened to neuter me along with other horrendous threats that can permanently damage a man. Both men winced at the possibilities, of course, since this was Tsunade they were talking about, so it became a really long list of outcomes. It couldn't be helped. Akatsuki had been unnaturally active, and you had your duties and I had my training. Though it's not like I was alone during the training I had apart from you. Hiro-sensei had me train under the acquaintances you knew that resided in different countries, as well as himself and friend of his in Kiri. Plus it was good to experience relying on oneself than always having others watch your back, and we did keep touch via Gamakichi. That's true, but it still took countless explanations and assurances of your safety along with a week in a hospital bed and your letters saying you're okay that she began listening to reason. Jiraiya unconsciously rubbed his behind, and what a week it was in that hospital. Damn. I didn't know Churka scalpels could be used that way. Ignoring the grunting noises of the Sannin, Naruto looked at the large gates of Konoha. Nostalgia seeping into him, he couldn't help but smile at the sight. Like they say, home is where the heart is. 3 years it's been a while, Eni-sensei? Naruto looked at the older man who stopped rubbing his posterior and suddenly had a mischievous smile on his face. Hey, wait till we get inside Gaki. I swear you'll be glomped by fangirls faster than Guy can run a lap around Konoha even with his 8 gates. Jiraiya stated as a bit of drool came down his face. I'll have enough inspiration for 2 volumes with that. Ika Ika harem, that doesn't sound too bad. Faye. As if Guy could catch me while I'm using Haration. Naruto retorted. His grueling 3-year training trip has paid off extremely well. With his skilled use in Kage Bunshin, due to its special side effect of giving information acquired by each clone to the original via being dispelled, and his acquired Sharingan, he was able to speed up his learning process by leaps and bounds. Jiraiya, seeing his pupil's fast development, wasted no time in training him in high-class jutsus, especially the Haration, the legendary technique of the Kiroi Senko. After a 6 months of training, the Sannin noticed that the blonde would be Hokage's immense growth on ninjutsu, and theorized that he too would be able to have potential to exceed in the other shinobi aspects. When 6 more months passed, Jiraiya's predictions were correct as Naruto easily picked up the basics and intermediate teachings of taijutsu and genjutsu. After discovering this, the Gamma Sennin decided to train him in every aspect, from ninjutsu, to taijutsu, to genjutsu and to kenjutsu. Naruto is now extremely competent in taijutsu, combining Gai's Goken, strong fist, and his unnaturally high affinity for wind elemental. He was able to make a somewhat hybrid taijutsu style he dubbed Kaze no Goken. His style consists of the normal Goken, but with the help of his wind affinity empowering each strike, his attacks are quicker and causes wind damage that either cuts or pierces during a punch or kick. The winds accompanied by each blow are deadly enough to cut the skin even if the strike misses by at most a maximum of 1 foot from the target. Now for genjutsu, which used to be the department that Naruto lacked, was now no longer a problem with his fully matured Sharingan, which the blonde was grateful for his Kekai Genkai, for he thought that learning the ways of genjutsu the normal way was too troublesome. Though his achievements didn't stop there, not only did Naruto exceed in ninjutsu and taijutsu and well versed in genjutsu, but he has now also developed his kenjutsu. How? Well, it started when during his trip the dual leaf nines came upon Sunagakure, in which Jiraiya said was the perfect place to hone his futon jutsus, and is also where Naruto and the Sand siblings met once again. It was during this time that Naruto informed Jiraiya of Gaara's problem with the Ichibi and asked if he could help reinforce the seal. Of course, Gaara, not used to generosity, was stunned by this. Being a seal master, Jiraiya was able to complete the imperfect seal, allowing Gaara to gain control of Shikaku and have peace of mind. His siblings and sensei were grateful to them for that, especially Gaara, but they didn't know because he slept for a week straight. But we're getting out of track here, now about how he came to kenjutsu. As thanks for helping their brother/student/future Kazekage, the Sand Nines were more than happy to assist Naruto with futon. Under the tutelage of selected Jounins was when the blonde leaf nin saw Baki, the former Jounin sensei of the Sand Trio, show Naruto the futon jutsu, Kaze no Yaiba. This jutsu creates a blade of wind that is used as a point-blank to mid-range attack that is also impossible to block due to its intangible nature, and unlike futon, Kamaitachi, this jutsu needs no tools or fans. An ideal assassination technique that's quick, silent, and could fatally wound if not kill an enemy. After seeing the performance and the capabilities of Kaze no Yaiba, Naruto began to think of a way to turn the wind blades into one corporeal blade of wind that he could wield. Flashback. Kaze no Yaiba. A gust of wind suddenly picked up and disappeared as quickly as it came. There were splinters of wood on the place where a wooden training post used to reside. Naruto looked at the remains of the post. Picking up a few wooden chunks, he saw the smooth cuts caused by the jutsu. Such flawless cuts in the space of a second, the Kaze no Yaiba, huh? Very nice jutsu indeed. The blonde looked at the half-masked Jounin, who had a look of pride at the result of his jutsu. Suga. Baki. Don't want to impose on you, but can you teach me that jutsu of yours? Judging by the speed and power, I'd say it was roughly around an A-rank jutsu, a very cool one at that. So I think you can teach me, cause I need some good futon jutsus in my repertoire. Naruto scratched the back of his head while giving a foxy grin. Baki first stared at the blonde, then smiled. Kid, for what you did for Gaara, I'd be happy to. Now listen up. I'm not very good at repeating things, so I'll only say this once. The Kaze no Yaiba requires churka to manipulate the atmosphere around you in a 5-foot radius, and flashback. Through repeated usage of Kaze no Yaiba accompanied with hundreds of Sharingan blazing clones, he was successful of creating a sword that he could wield. By using churka as a container, much like the Rasengan, and by filling the container by churka-empowered wind that continuously circulates at rapid speeds inside of the churka container, the blonde was able to achieve his goal. The technique became known as Kaze no Rasengan, spiral blade of wind, due to its likeliness of the Rasengan and originating from Baki's Kaze no Yaiba. However, the said jutsu currently has a drawback. The amount of concentration needed for the manipulation of the technique far exceeded what it took for Rasengan, which takes a considerable amount by itself. Concentrating on the sword and on battle was taxing, and in a real fight it could cost him his life. Confronting Jiraiya with his problem, the Sannin told him to stick with the katana for the time being and practice the Kaze no Rasengan with his clones for battle simulations that would improve concentration on multiple tasks at once. After spending 2 months in Suna, the duo left for Kiri. The Gamma Sennin then told Naruto of an acquaintance of his that was once a member of the Kiri no Shinobigatana Nananin Shu, damn long title, and was an expert in kenjutsu. Quickly excited at the prospect of being able to use a blade, Naruto wasted no time dragging the pervert to Kiri, much to the Sannin's irritation. Arriving at the village after 5 days of travel, the two booked a hotel room and started their search. It took 4 hours to find their target, and their meeting was interesting for Naruto, to say the least. Flashback again. Slowly walking through the crowded streets of Kiri, the two leaf nines were casually taking in the sights while attempting their search. Their eyes gazing left and right, trying to find a glimpse of their target. Ero-senin, who are we trying to find again? You only gave me a general description: long hair, dark brown eyes, thin and approximately 5 feet 9 inches in height. The blonde asked for the umpteenth time during their search. Finding a man whom he had never met, and was only given vague description of, wasn't easy, even for shinobi. Jiraiya sighed in annoyance. Gaki, just stick with me, I'll point him out to you when we spot him. Sighing from their fruitless search, Naruto hangs his head down. Because of his inattentiveness, the blonde accidentally knocks down a passerby. Ouch. Oops, sorry ma'am, my fault. The blonde nin smiles in embarrassment, and offers his hand to the fallen lady. Looking at the woman, Naruto couldn't help but blush. With long jet black hair, chocolate brown eyes and a slender figure, all wrapped in a blue kimono, she was definitely one of the better-looking women that he saw during his travels. It's no problem, young man. The lady smiles at him, making the leaf nin blush a darker shade of red. The woman, seeing this, couldn't help but giggle at the sight. Ah. Hiro, is that you? The two look at direction of the voice. They saw Jiraiya walking towards them, a smile on his face. Been a while, hasn't it, Hiro? The Sannin shaking his hand. Sure has, Jiraiya, I see you haven't changed. The woman/man said while returning a grin to the Sannin. Naruto looked at the two and couldn't help but be confused. Jiraiya, seeing his student's dilemma, says, Naruto, allow me to introduce my friend. His name is Hiro Murakami, a former member of the Kiri no Shinobigatana Nananin Shu and the one who we've been looking for. Ah. So this is Uzumaki Naruto, the one you told me about in your messages. It's good to meet you, Naruto-kun, the Kiri-nin said while keeping his smile on and now directed at the blonde. Naruto's mind took its time as it worked on the new information he was given. If one were to listen carefully, you could hear the sound of gears running in motion. Though while the blonde's mind was comprehending the words of the Sannin, his mouth had decided to blurt out something different. Did you say he? You mean to tell me this hot chick is a guy? He yelled. Oh, Kami-sama, it's another Haku. Is every good-looking kunoichi and Kiri male too? Hiro turned red from anger and embarrassment at the comment, while Jiraiya snickered at his friend's predicament. Patting Hiro on the back, the Sannin said, It's not your fault, Hiro. It's your genes that fuel your female disposition that's the problem. The Kiri-nin glared at Jiraiya. Yeah, that sure puts a lot off my chest. Do you know how out of control it's gotten? I've been groped by males, Jiraiya. Groped by males. You know how wrong that feels. Jiraiya's snickers turned into full-blown laughter as he clutched his sides and leaned on a nearby wall. At this time, Naruto could be seen at the nearest garbage can emptying the contents of his stomach. A thought ran through his mind. Damn the Bishounen. End flashback. After a week of recovering from vomiting sprees and Hayatan burns, the latter received by Jiraiya, Naruto came under the teachings of the former Kiri-nin. Through Hiro, the Leaf Nin expanded his Suiton jutsus and learned a decent amount of Hayatan. It was under the said Nin that Naruto learned the basics aspects of Kenjutsu, and later on moved to intermediate. Like Jiraiya, Hiro noticed the genin's fast-paced growth even without the Sharingan. Naruto absorbed all his teachings like a sponge, like it was second nature. As 3 weeks passed, the Sannin received word from his spies on the sudden activity of Akatsuki. Last flashback for this chapter. I promise, Databeo. Jiraiya walked into a clearing. Looking around, he could see pieces of melting ice and soaked dirt littered around. Walking in the middle, he searched for our blonde hero and his Kiri-nin friend. Deciding to walk further, and the Sannin continued to look but stopped as he heard a voice. Suiton, Suryuden no Jutsu. Looking to his left, he spotted an oncoming torrent of water in the form of a dragon heading his way. Time seemed to slow as he realized his current situation. Oh shit. His hands automatically began a set of seals and slammed his palms to the ground. Doton, Doria Hiki. A giant slab of dirt and rock sprung out of the ground. Enforced with churka, it solidified into a protective wall. The dragon missile slammed to the wall, turning the dirt to mud. When the Suiton attack ended, the wall began to fall apart as chakra was no longer holding it together. The Sannin looked at his attacker and scowled. Naruto saw the scowl and smiled in embarrassment. Gomen Ero-senin, didn't see you there. As the genin scratched the back of his head. I swear, Gaki, you're going to be the end of me one day. The Sannin sneered. Jiraiya walked towards Naruto, his face now serious. The blonde saw this and decided to listen to what he has to say, because even though Jiraiya is a hentai, he's still a Sannin, and when Sannins are serious it usually means dire business. Naruto, Akatsuki seems to have been active lately. My spies have recently sent me a message on their current movements. I need to look into this. we were supposed to have at least another year and 2 months before they would start to mobilize again. I've talked to Hiro on continuing your training. I also gave him a list of friends and contacts that can help. Naruto stared at the Sannin before nodding in understanding. So we're going to separate for the remainder of the 3 years, huh? Jiraiya grimly nodded. There's no other way. You need to continue your training and I need to check on the situation with Akatsuki. The blonde genin put a reassuring hand on the Sannin's shoulder. Don't worry, I understand. You have your duties as a Konoha nin and a Sannin. I'll be fine with Hiro-sensei around. The Gamma Sannin smiled at his student. He truly has come a long way. Alright Gaki, I'll see you in Konoha in a year and 2 months. He turns and walks out of the field, but before he exits he was stopped by Naruto's voice. Remember, you get to tell Bachan about this predicament. Well, ja any Ero-sanning. Naruto waved as he shined out of sight. Jiraiya left the training grounds cursing his luck with anime tears rolling down his eyes. End flashback. Time flew by during their separation. Naruto continued his training under different senseis while Jiraiya continued his information gathering before returning to Konoha 2 months earlier than Naruto. Deciding that leaving the blonde to his own was for the best at the moment, the Sannin decided to stay and wait for his student, while enduring the occasional beatdown from his former teammate, Tsuanda. Naruto looked towards the gate. I wonder how pissed Bachan is right now. The nin was cut from his musings by Jiraiya's voice. Gaki! Come on, Tsunade's been waiting 3 years for you. The Sannin said, who was now a few meters ahead of the blonde. He shined next to the Sannin, and the two started to head to Konoha's west gate. Naruto stopped before the entrance of the village. Staring at the Hokage monument, he grinned. I'm home. It was another typical afternoon for Tsunade, paperwork overflowing her desk obscuring her from view. Even with working and signing at speeds that befit a Kage, the stacks never seemed to dwindle down. Shizen, looking over her own stack of papers, looked to her master and felt pity for her plight. After all, paperwork is the only enemy that strikes fear to any Kage. 10 minutes of continuous signing and cursing, the blonde Godame abruptly stops. Reaching into her cabinet, she pulls out a measuring tape. Let's see, 32 inches. For this one, 30 inches. For the other one, and 45 inches. For Ga. Tsunade-sama. The brunette medic nin quickly appeared at her side. Shizen. It's grown. This stack used to be only 39 inches. Now it's a freaking 45 inches. Tsunade yells while pointing to the accursed pile. Shizen surveys the area before seeing the problem. Tsunade-sama, where do you put the papers that you signed? I stacked it right here, pointing to the 45 inches. Pile of papers. The brunette giggled at the sight of Tsunade turning red from embarrassment for her moment of stupidity. Huffing indignantly, she pulls out a bottle of sake from her drawer. Taking one big swig, she downs the bottle in mere seconds. Slamming the bottle down to the garbage, she runs her fingers through her hair and sighs. I swear I'm gonna strangle that brat for making me Hokage, she says while rubbing her stiff neck. Before Shizen could reply, the door opened, revealing the Chunin Kotetsu. Tsunade-sama! Tsunade-sama, are you here? He yells while looking around the room for the blonde Hokage. Here I am, drowning in paperwork, literally. Raising her hand above the towers of paper that obscured her from Kotetsu's view. Sweat dropping at the sight, momentarily he composes himself. Walking nearer to the pile of papers before stopping in the middle of the room. Tsunade-sama, there's a leaf nin here waiting for you, claiming to be the Rokudame. Tsunade quickly rose above the paperwork. Is it him? The Chunin smiled at the Hokage's restrained excitement, knowing the sibling relationship that the two blondes have. Hi. He's returned. Quick! Send him in. Kotetsu disappears in a puff of smoke, leaving the two medic nins in the room. Shizen smiles at the news of the blonde genin's return and looks to Tsunade, who was restraining herself from pouncing through the door. Well, Tsunade-sama, it seems you get your chance to strangle him after all. The medic nin chuckled again at Tsunade's embarrassment. A minute passed. Suddenly 2 pairs of footsteps could be heard outside the door. The doorknob slowly turned and the door slowly opened, revealing Jiraiya, who walked in with a smile on his face. The Gamma Sannin stepped aside and leaned on a corner of the Hokage's office. As the door was about to close, a palm reached out and stopped it. A tall blonde teen walked in. Taking a few steps inside, he reached the center of the room. Naruto and Tsunade locked in a stare. Silence filled the room until it was broken by the genin. I see you're doing well, Tsunade-sama, giving her a small, gentle smile. Moments passed until Tsunade disappeared from sight and engulfed Naruto in tight hug. Tears began to form in her eyes. 2 years with Jiraiya and another year by yourself, a total of 3 years that you had me worried, brat, she said affectionately. Is she saying that I'm a bad influence? Jiraiya's eyebrows twitched at the remark but refused to break the moment the two had. Breaking the hug with Tsunade, Naruto was immediately trapped in another with Shizen. I miss you too, Shizen-ichan. After a minute of affection, she released her grip and examines Naruto further. Glancing from head to toe, she notices that his body has matured, now with a handsome facade, and his change in clothing added more to his now increased appeal. "Nei-chan, you're drooling," Naruto said flatly. The brunette quickly came out of her stupor and blushed in embarrassment. Turning her head away from the blonde, she notices Jiraiya scribbling in a notepad. Righteous fury rising within her as she stalks towards the preoccupied pervert, chakra scalpels activated. But before she could do any damage, she was stopped by Naruto's voice. "Now with the pleasantries over with, I suggest we get to business," he said in an emotionless tone. The two medic Nins were surprised in this uncharacteristic behavior that was unlike the Naruto they knew 3 years ago. Ignoring their stares, he continues, "During my 3 years' absence, 2 of them spent with Jiraiya-sensei and the last one being spent with different senseis, all of whom are acquaintances with Jiraiya. One would think a few things would have changed around here." Taking a breath of air, Naruto continues, "I would like to know what has gone on and in Konoha. Also, I'd like to know the current activity of Akatsuki and Orochimaru. Surely you would be privy to this information, Hokage-sama? I'd ask Jiraiya, but might as well ask you since you've already received his reports." The two medic Nins continued to stare blankly at Naruto, eyes blinking every 10 seconds. Even Jiraiya was a bit stunned at the display of maturity from his student. "How much have you changed, Naruto?" Jiraiya thought, while the other two Nins thought at similar lines. "What?" Irritation at Naruto's voice at the unsettling looks he was given by the occupants of the room. Dismissing the rare show maturity from her surrogate brother, Tsunade returns to her desk before setting her gaze at him again. "For starters, Konoha has been a bit quiet ever since your leave." Naruto scratches the back of his head, "and most of your friends have become Chunin. The Konohamaru Corps also joined the ranks and are currently Genin." "Wait, most of my friends?" Confusion in his voice. "Yes, Hyuga Niji and Abirame Shino have both become rookie Jounin. Quite a feat if you asked me." Hearing this, Naruto couldn't help but smile at his friend's achievements. Tsunade cleared her throat before continuing on. "But as for the information on Akatsuki and Otogekure, I'm sorry, Naruto, but that information is only given to those of elite Chunin and Jounins. Don't ask Jiraiya either, because I've specifically asked him not to spill information unless it's an emergency." Silence ensued as Naruto's heart sank, but a voice broke the silence, this time by Jiraiya. "But there is a way he could obtain the information legally, am I right, Swandaheim?" A glint could be seen in his eyes. Tsunade sporting a similar look, "Yes, there is a way that he can get them along with other benefits." Shizen and Naruto looked at the two in confusion. Tsunade rummaged through one of her cabinets and pulled out a form. "Naruto, do you know how a ninja moves up in ranks without taking official exams?" Though still confused at the current situation, he decides to answer, "Yes, there are 3 ways. The first is when ninjas perform well in missions that are 1 or 2 ranks above them. The second is during wartime, where it is necessary at times to move ninjas into higher ranks. The last is when a ninja is tested by a high-ranking nin, specifically Jounin or Anbu, while in the presence of other Jounins for an unbiased result. Though I still don't see what this has to do with." Naruto stopped himself as realization hit him. Jiraiya and Tsunade sported smirks, and Shizen cast a smile, now understanding the situation. The blonde Godame then handed a form to Naruto, who quickly studied the paper. "Jounin registration? Jiraiya has informed me that you were more than capable of handling the rank of Jounin by the time the two of you parted ways a year ago. I think that testing you for this rank is more suitable than putting you in for Chunin," unless Tsunade left her sentence hanging. "Putting me in for Chunin would be an understatement to my abilities, Bachan." His lips forming a confident smirk. "Well then, Gaki, go to Training Field 7, your Jounin proctors should be arriving there shortly. I'll be there as well as Jiraiya, we're curious to see your progress," she said in glee. Putting the paper in one of his many pockets, Naruto leaves the room in a whirl of leaves. Shizen looks at her mentor, a bit of worry on her face. "Are you sure this is wise, Tsunade-sama?" Jiraiya puts a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "Don't worry, I've seen his growth the time he was training under me. Have confidence in him, because I do." Opening one of the windows in the room, "I'll see you at the training grounds, Tsunade." Jumping through the window. Rummaging through her drawers once more, Tsunade pulled another sake bottle and downing it in 2 gulps. Throwing it in the garbage, she leans back on her chair looking at the Hokage monument. "This is going to be a long day," she sighed. Training Field 7. Training Field 7, huh? Gazing upon the area of his old training grounds, he felt nostalgic. Walking deeper into the field, he spots 3 wooden posts embedded in the ground. Resting his hand on the middle post, Memories of his happier times with Team 7 filled his mind. Sitting down and leaning on the post, Naruto stares up at the sky, engulfed in calm. As 10 minutes pass, the blonde senses 8 familiar chakra signatures. About time. I think Kakashi-sensei's tardiness has been rubbing off on the shinobi populace while I was gone. Chuckling at the times his former sensei was usually late on team meetings. 8 nins entered the field. All are either jounin or higher rank: Kakashi, Guy, Kurenai, Asuma, Genma, Shizen, and the 2 sanins. As they entered the field, they noticed that it was vacant. You sure you told him the right training grounds, Swanda-sama? Kurenai asked at the bewildered Hokage. Yes, I told him to go to training field 7. He should have already been here by now, unless of course he started a habit of being chronically late. Glaring at Kakashi, whose eyebrow was twitching. I'm losing my dignity, aren't I? The copy nin mused while his jounin companions were chuckling at his expense. That hurts, Bachan. Do you really have so little faith in me? A voice shot throughout the surrounding trees. A gust of wind blew through the field, blowing blades of grass and leaves. The winds then receded and Naruto stood in front of the gathered nins, arms crossed and a smirk on his facade. The group of elite nins stared at the blonde, more so than others. I didn't sense his presence at all. Interesting. Jiraiya felt proud of his student, while the others had thoughts similar to his. The jounin senseis gazed upon the former orange-wearing blonde along with the Genma, the proctor for the third part of the Chunin exams. And Naruto? Is that you, Naruto? Kakashi gasped as he studied his former student. Do you know any other male nin in Konoha that has spiky blonde hair, whisker marks on each cheek, and a well-toned body? The blonde joked. Kurenai stared on, a faint blush on her face as she took in Naruto's new appearance in full detail. Naruto senses her gaze and shifts his eyes to her. Kurenai-sensei, you're drooling. He deadpanned. The red-eyed Kunoichi blushed and fidgeted in embarrassment. The group of jounins laughed at her situation. YOSH. It seems that Naruto-kun's flames of youth has grown and is now raising it higher by hitting on older women. Guy yelled while doing his signature pose, white teeth sparkling and an unbreakable genjutsu of a sunset in the background. Some things never change, I guess. Naruto's sweat dropped at the sight. I didn't know that you were the one that we needed to proctor for this. Jounin rank, huh? Things have changed over the years, hasn't it, Naruto? Asuma said as he received a nod from Naruto. Genma continued to watch on, and received a wave from the blonde which he returned. Kakashi was still stunned at the appearance of his student. He's grown, Naruto. Naruto's voice took him out of his stupor. So Tsunade-sama, who would be the one testing me for this test? Looking at the female blonde. A mischievous glint came in Tsunade's eyes as she stepped forward. Uzumaki Naruto, in this test you will be judged by 5 jounins and 2 sanins to see if you have the capabilities and properties suitable for jounin, and in this test your opponent is Hatake Kakashi. Naruto's eyes widened before nodding. Walking in the opposite direction of the group, he stops when he was 30 feet away. Tsunade, Jiraiya, Shizen and the 4 other jounins stepped away and rested on the spot where the 3 training posts were located. Kakashi's eyes locked with Naruto's before smiling. It's been a while, Naruto. I see you've changed quite a bit. Definitely changed. I wouldn't be surprised if you became the next eye candy for the Kunoichi populace in the village. Erupting in perverted giggles at the end. And I see you haven't changed much, sensei. Still a late closet pervert, I see. The blonde heartily replied. Both opponents shared a good laugh before stopping. Once again they began to analyze their opponent. Silence ensued, but was quickly broken by another familiar voice, Gi-sensei. The 2 sanins and the 5 jounins who were gathered at the post stared, while Naruto and Kakashi ignored, at an oncoming green blur that was holding a figure. 3 other blurs were dashing not too far behind. The green blur landed in a whirl of leaves, revealing Lee, who now looked like a Guy Minami, with Niji being lifted by Lee's right arm. Gi-sensei. Yes, Lee? Niji has performed something unyouthful. What is it, my beautiful Lee? He used his Byakugan to look through Tenten's clothes. What? Is this true, Niji? He's lying. The Hyuga prodigy yelled. I was practicing my proficiency with the Byakugan when Tenten came up and talked to me. Liar! Then how come you still had it on and was staring at her chests? The Guy clone yelled indignantly. Because I felt your presence behind her, and used the Byakugan to see through her only to see you crouching down. Niji retorted, what were you doing anyway? I was beating my record on squatting. While staring at Tenten's ass? The pale-eyed jounin then saw a volley of kunais aimed at him and Lee. Both nins jumped to the side, avoiding the projectiles. Tenten came into view along with Sakura and Shikamaru. Will you two stop talking about that? Tenten spat in an icy tone as she slowly walked to her two teammates, who were hiding behind Guy, fearful of the righteous anger of their female teammate. Tsunade-sama. Sorry for the interruption, but we couldn't stop Lee from entering the grounds. Sakura came over with Shikamaru lazily walking behind her. Tsunade raised her hand signaling the two to stop in their tracks. Looking over to the still bickering Team Guy, she clears her throat, gaining their attention. Team Guy, Sakura and Shikamaru, we are in the middle of proctoring the ascension of a ninja to the Jounin ranks. You guys may watch as well seeing as you're here now, but don't disturb the process. So who's the one being tested? Shikamaru asks as he sits himself down near Asuma. Asuma looked at his student before complying. A good friend of yours. The chain smoker replied while lighting a cigarette, which was quickly extinguished by Shizen, much to his irritation. A good friend of mine? Who? Shikamaru was but off by Ginma, who pointed in the direction of Kakashi and Naruto. The members of Team Guy and Sakura also looked in the direction, finding two people that were staring at each other. Sakura looked at Kakashi's opponent. Let's see, blonde hair, blue eyes, whisker marks, a hot body. Wait. Is that? But before she could say anything, she was beat by Lee. Naruto-kun has returned. Niji and Shikamaru stared on in shock at their friend's drastic change in appearance, while Tenten had sparkles in her eyes. That's Naruto? Damn, the weapon mistress mused. Enough. The group of young neens were cut from their thoughts by Tswanda, who continued, Hatake Kakashi, Uzumaki Naruto, the match for Jounin rank will now commence. Begin. Kakashi quickly raised his headband, revealing his spinning Sharingan. Naruto looked in surprise before smiling. Not going to read your book this time, Sense? Nope, something tells me I'm going to have to go all out in this. Don't disappoint me, Naruto. For a while either of the two competitors moved from their spots, Naruto was the first to act. Reaching into his pouch, he threw a volley of shuriken at the silver-haired Jounin. Kakashi ducked the volley and countered it with his own. The blonde jumped, dodging the attack, but was met with another volley of projectiles. Putting his hand to a seal, he shouts, Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. 4 clones appeared at his side. 2 of the clones grabbed a hold of Naruto, and another clone, and chucked them higher to the sky. The 2 said Bunshins were then dispelled, being impaled by kunais. The remaining clone took a hold of Naruto's arm and swung him at Kakashi's direction before dispelling. Naruto charged in at Kakashi, Rasengan in hand. The gap between the two neens was quickly closing. Naruto was now within 5 feet of the silver-haired neen. Before he was able to connect the attack, Kakashi took a hold of Naruto's right wrist and slammed him into the ground, dispelling his Rasengan, and pitted a kunai to his neck. Good tactic, but not good enough, Naruto, the Jounin stated. Naruto sported a smirk which didn't go unnoticed by Kakashi and the onlookers, Bunshin Daibakuha. Kakashi's eyes widened and quickly took off his hold, but before he could move out to a safe distance, Naruto exploded, leveling the surrounding trees. The force of the blow threw Kakashi into the air. With a quick flip, he lands safely to the ground but didn't remain unscathed. Parts of his clothes were singed, and the explosion knocked out the air in his lungs. Composing himself, the silver-haired Jounin took a defensive stance, glancing around for signs of his blonde attacker. Sensing a presence behind him, Kakashi quickly ducks, barely avoiding a kick to the head. Using Shunshin, Kakashi reappeared 17 feet away. Naruto took the standard Gukken stance, which surprised Kakashi and the onlookers, excluding the 2 Sanins. Sensei Kakashi looked at Naruto while taking his own stance. Shinobi Tactical Knowledge Number 1, Taijutsu. Well, this is an interesting wrinkle. Tsunade smiled at the awkward situation Kakashi was in. The 2 stared at each other once again. Shall we dance, Sensei? The blonde smirked. Kakashi's Sharingan glowed. The challenge was accepted, and the 2 disappeared in a whirl of leaves. Fallen trees and numerous craters that were littered around the area was the only indication that a taijutsu battle is in progress. The sounds of steel clashing, body parts thumping with each hit, and the blurs that were appearing only to disappear were all that could be seen and heard. 2 figures came into view in the center of the field, both somewhat winded due to their battle. On one side was the copy ninja Kakashi in a defensive stance, his body sporting cuts and parts of his clothing torn. Naruto was on the other side, also in a stance. His body has a few cuts from kunais, but his wounds weren't as bad as Kakashi's. His taijutsu style is Gukken, that much I know. What I don't know is how he keeps inflicting damage on me even when I dodge and block. How do dash? Kakashi was cut from his thoughts as Naruto charged straight at him. The Jounin set himself to counter the attack. Naruto disappears from sight and reappeared above Kakashi, preparing a drop kick. Kakashi sidestepped to the right, avoiding the kick by an inch, but that was enough, as a cut appeared on his left arm. Again. Frustration seeped into him as he jumped back a few meters from Naruto. Calm down, Hatake, and analyze your opponent. Look for things out of the ordinary. Composing himself, Kakashi, with his Sharingan eye, studied Naruto as the blonde set himself at a stance once again. Focusing his eyes, he saw layers of thin chakra lines circulating throughout Naruto's arms and legs at great speeds. I see, wind manipulation, huh? The way he controls it is similar to Asuma's hien. That's how he's able to cut me even if he misses. But there has to be a range of how far the winds extend. Using Shunshin, Naruto teleported a foot away from Kakashi, his arm about to deliver a punch to his chest. I guess I'll find out through trial and error. Kakashi mused as he dodged the blow by bending his body to the right, avoiding the strike by 11 inches. A small cut appeared on his Jounin vest but didn't draw blood. I see. Quickly twisting his body, the copy Nin delivers a kick to Naruto's abdomen, sending the blonde a good 15 feet back. The genin skidded on the ground before coming to a halt. Taking a breath of air, he set himself for another attack. Seems Sensei figured out the trick to my attacks. But it takes more than that to counter my style. The blonde inwardly smirks as he sets his eyes on Kakashi. So Kakashi's figured out the force behind Naruto's attacks. Jiraiya thought out loud. You mean how Kakashi keeps getting wounded even if he blocks or dodge? Kurenai asked, and the rest of the onlookers looked to Jiraiya hoping for answers as well. Each of them, Jiraiya excluded, were awed at how Kakashi was barely keeping up with Naruto during their still ongoing taijutsu bout. Yes, to put it simply, Naruto's style is a combination of Gai's Kukin and Asuma's hien. The Sannin stopped there, letting the information sink into them. Tsunade and Asuma's eyes widened as two words left the smoker's mouth: wind manipulation. Everyone's head turned towards him, excluding the Sannins who just nodded. Looking at the curious eyes egging him to continue, the chain smoker sighed. If what Jiraiya-sama says is true, then he's combining Gai's taijutsu style with wind manipulation. He's using wind-based chakra to have an extension in his arms and legs that cuts the opponent even if the user misses. It's the same thing I do with my trench knives when I use hien. All of them were stunned at his explanation. Even Shikamaru had his eyes intensely focused on his sensei. Niji quickly recovered from his shock and activated his Byakugan and stared at Naruto. I see it, layers of chakra lines coursing through the lower arms and legs, the Hyuga stated. Ginma took out the Senbon from his mouth and stared at the two fighters. If Naruto's using that type of taijutsu, then Kakashi's in for more than he bargained for. Everyone nodded in agreement. Let your flames of youth burn brightly, Naruto Keiyuan. Gai and Lee yelled in unison, much to the displeasure of everyone near them. Naruto charged at Kakashi once again at a great speed. Blurring out of existence, the blonde reappears under Kakashi preparing a kick. Konoha Senpu! The blonde sends a powerful upward kick towards the silver-haired Jounin's chin, but the moment he made contact, his foot demolished a log instead. Kawarimi. Kakashi shined behind Naruto, preparing a backhand blow to the side of the blonde's head. Sensing an upcoming attack, the blonde ducks in time as a fist brushes through his hair. Naruto counters by doing a roundhouse kick that connects with the Jounin's ribs, but once again he was met with a log. So he's countering my style through Kawarimi. Clever, as expected from Sensei. The one-eyed Sharingan user hid himself in the trees while looking at his student. His mind was going through numerous strategies, figuring out better ways to counter. Using his hands, he rubbed his temples and sighed. This is going to be a while. Tell me about it, a voice behind him said. Kakashi's eyes widened as he turned around. Standing on the same branch was Naruto, who was smiling at him sweetly, too sweetly. Had a nice break? Good, let's continue then, shall we? Kakashi inwardly groaned as the blonde disappeared in a whirl of leaves. A thought ran through his mind as Kakashi sensed a figure directly behind him. Son of a... A loud explosion caught the attention of the audience in the fight. Looking at the direction of the fallen trees and dust, they say a figure come out of the smoke and into the clearing. The figure turned out to be Kakashi, who was slightly more wounded than the last time they saw him before he used Kawarimi. The copy Nin didn't have time to relax as a volley of shuriken emerged from the dwindling smoke. Unleashing his own projectiles, the silver-haired Jounin deflected each of them. Using his keen senses and Sharingan eye, he quickly spots Naruto's position within the forest trees and threw kunais tied with explosive notes. The blonde dodged all 6 kunais. As each of them impaled the tree, he saw the notes tied to them. Shit! Naruto jumped off the tree and landed a few meters away from his sensei. The tree that he was on a second ago soon exploded. He forced me out of hiding. Kyuso, I got to make a distraction. The blonde looked at Kakashi's calculating eyes and smirked. Sensei, Shinobi Tactical Knowledge Number 2, Genjutsu. Kakashi's eyes widened as Naruto began to go through a set of seals at a pace that he could barely keep up with, even with his Sharingan. The genin stopped and the last seal, Ninpu, Kokwanji no Jutsu. Darkness surrounded the copy nin, obscuring everything from view. Using his Sharingan, he quickly dispelled the genjutsu. When everything came into view again, he found Naruto to be nowhere in sight. A voice rang throughout the trees, catching his attention. Shinobi Tactical Knowledge Number 3, Ninjutsu. Two sources of chakra flared. Kakashi looked up to see two Narutos 50 feet in the sky, both of them going through the same seals. Katan, Hao Senka no Jutsu! Both cried out in unison. Fireballs began to rain down on the Jounin, who was hard-pressed on dodging the multiple balls of flame. What are you planning, Naruto? Dodging the last fireball, Kakashi looks around the empty field trying to find his student. A voice emanated once again, this time from behind. Suetun, Baku Sui Shoha. A massive amount of water gushed out and covered a large portion of the training ground, flooding the area by at least a foot of water. What's he doing? Tenten asked her peers and the Jounins, all of which were sitting on branches of trees due to the water. Shikamaru looked at her and back to the fight before answering. He's setting up the field for Suetun Jutsus. Yeah, but the water also gives Kakashi the privilege to use Suetun as well. Shizen chipped in. Let's just see how things play out. Tsunade stated with finality. Everyone else silently agreed. Naruto and Kakashi both stood on the water 50 feet away from each other. Suddenly chunks of water started to rise slowly, each formed into a human figure before becoming a copy of Naruto. Mizubunshin. There were about 100 of them surrounding Kakashi from all angles. 10 clones charged at him, quickly pulling out 2 kunais, one on each hand. Kakashi sliced 3 of them with one swing, dodging the attack from another clone before dispelling it with a stab. The remaining clones attacked together in a circle that surrounded the copy nin. Kakashi spun himself as if performing kaiten, using the kunais to slice the oncoming clones, destroying all of them. The Jounin looked around the clones that infested area, all of them ready to charge at him. There's too many of them. I guess I'll have to use that technique. Good thing I've been working on increasing my chakra reserves lately. The white-haired nin set his arms in an X shape as he gathered chakra. How about I turn it up a notch? What do you say, Naruto? Before a response could be heard, Kakashi's hands discharged a massive amount of chakra, his hands now both covered in lightning. Raikiri Nirentatsu. Naruto looks at him, mouth slightly opened. Kakashi sees this and smiles. You're not the only one learning new tricks during the years. The blonde composes himself and smirks. Let's see what you can do, sensei. Let's go. His remaining clones advanced towards Kakashi, who was thwarting each of them with relative ease. Naruto watched as his sensei slaughtered his clone army, Raikiri's blazing with life as it tore through each clone. Forming a seal, he cries out, Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. A clone appeared beside him and nodded at the mental command he was given and disappeared into the rapidly decreasing platoon of clones. As Kakashi was finishing off the last 20 clones, Naruto began sealing. Swinging his Raikiri-empowered palm at the last clone, the Jounin caught his breath. But his victory over the Mizu-Bunshins was short-lived as Naruto cried out, Suetun, Suryuden no Jutsu. The water near Naruto erupted, forming the shape of a dragon that charged at Kakashi. Using his left hand, he met the oncoming attack with one of his Raikiri. Both forces cancelled each other out. Suetun, Suryuden no Jutsu. The copy nin turned around and saw another water dragon. With his remaining Raikiri, he thrust it towards the torrent. Both attacks once again cancelled each other. Kakashi looked to where the attack originated and only saw a small layer of smoke that was dissipating and frowned. Kage Bunshin. Moving his gaze to Naruto, Kakashi went through his own set of seals, Suetun, Daibakufu no Jutsu. A massive spiraling blast of water sped towards the blonde. Kyuso. His hands automatically sprang into action. Suetun, Suijin Hiki. The water around Naruto shot up, creating a barrier. Both jutsus then collided in a giant blast of water. The surrounding area was soaked from the clashing techniques and drops of water rained down. As the temporary rain of water stopped, both fighters could be seen struggling against each other, kunais in hand. Kakashi's right hand gripped his kunai tightly as Naruto's own kunai pressed against his. The blonde looked at his sensei before smirking, I got you. Using his free hand, Naruto pointed his palm to Kakashi's midsection, Futon, de Tapa. Kakashi felt a powerful explosion of wind knock him back with the force of a boulder. The gushing wind slammed him into a tree, imprinting his figure onto its trunk. Slowly raising himself up, the copy nin shook himself of his dizziness before his mind tried to make sense of what just happened. No seals at all. It seems his affinity for wind is higher than I thought. This is going to get tricky. Gi-sensei. What just happened? Well, Lee, it seems Naruto-kun blew Kakashi away by his flames of youth. Gi-sensei. Lee. Student and sensei once again hugged each other with excess passion, sickening the others around them. Is his affinity really that high? I mean, to be able to do futon without seals, is that possible? Sakura asked her mentor. Tsunade nodded in reply. Yes, it's possible to control an element to an extent if you have the affinity for it. Gaara and his sand is a perfect example. The Jounins and Chunins accepted the explanation, but the two Sanins shared a thought. Still, using no seals at all for a jutsu that originally requires it. I can't even do that. Coming out of his daze, Kakashi ran through seals again. Suetun, Swishoha. A large body of water came to life and sprang towards Naruto, who was eyeing the attack. He narrowed his eyes at the water before countering. Hayatan, Kakuribo Fuzetsu. An icy black dragon with red eyes shot from the blonde's arms and into the rushing tidal wave. As the two attacks met, the water began to freeze as the ice dragon continued to pierce through the attack. A large dome of ice now stood on where the two attacks confronted each other. Kakashi shined atop the dome and locked eyes with Naruto. So he knows Hayatan too. You've grown well, Naruto. His Sharingan began to spin as his hands went through a familiar set of seals. Hayatan, Kakuribo Fuzetsu. Naruto's eyes widened as he saw his own attack copied and now charging at him. Should have seen this coming, he's not known as the copy ninja for nothing. Katon, Karyu Enden. A jet of flame in the form of dragon shot out of the genin's mouth. The two dragons, one of ice and the other of fire, clashed head-on. Fire melting ice, and ice extinguishing fire, both attacks soon dissipated into nothingness. Kakashi jumped down to the still flooded grounds and landed 10 meters away from Naruto. The copy nin looked at his student with his blazing Sharingan eye. Let's see what you got, Naruto. The blonde smiled at his sensei, Futon, Atsugai. A massive gust of wind flew towards Kakashi, splitting the water as it reaches its target. Suetun, Daibaku no Jutsu. A large vortex of water sprang up and cancelled the oncoming jutsu at the last second. Kakashi then sensed chakra behind him and ducked as 2 bullets of water flew past him at high speed. Turning around, he spies Naruto and slams his hands down onto the surface of the water. Dotun, Doryuden. A large dragon head made of mud appeared next to Kakashi. The dragon opened its mouth and launched mud balls at Naruto. The blonde dodged the first volley of mud projectiles. Another one came right after it, followed by another. Need to take that dragon out. After dodging another volley, he set his sights on the mud dragon with Kakashi nowhere in sight. I'll worry about that later. Hayatan, Haryumoko. A large tiger of ice charged at the mud dragon, freezing the water it traveled on. Both jutsus crashed onto each other, leaving only frozen earth and water as an end result. Naruto then looked around. His sensei was nowhere in sight. Suddenly the water below him began to rumble and splash around violently. Suetun, Daibakure no Jutsu. The blonde's eyes widened. Shit. A maelstrom formed below him and started to drag him down. Enforcing his feet with extra chakra, Naruto tried to escape, but to no avail. No choice. Stopping his struggle, his body started to sink down at a faster rate. Kakashi questioningly stared at Naruto from a tree branch. What are you doing? His question was answered as Naruto's hands rested on a seal before crying out, Futon, Tatsu no Ashigoto. A tornado formed from the sky and reached down to the maelstrom of water. The force of their collision shook the grounds as heavy winds and gallons of water whipped about. Kakashi and the other Jounins, Sanins and Chunins enforced their feet with chakra, sticking onto the trees as heavy winds threatened to blow them away. The wind started to die out. Kakashi stared at the field. A huge crater formed in the field, drawing in the water that flooded the grounds, forming a small lake. He saw Naruto on a tree branch, his clothes soaked, but other than a few new cuts he was fine. Suddenly the air behind him began to feel hot. Turning around, Kakashi saw an oncoming fireball headed towards him. Katon, Gakaku no Jutsu. The copy nin quickly jumped off the tree and back onto the now muddy field. He quickly spotted 2 Narutos standing on the lake, both of them sealing. Suetun, Suryuden no Jutsu. Katon, Karyu Enden. A dragon of water and another one of flame shot out and headed towards Kakashi, both forces combined in a tight helix. Ninpu, Daryu Enden! Kakashi gawked at the combination attack. Shaking his head, he jumped to the right by 10 feet, avoiding the attack. The stream of fire and water streaked through the forest, destroying everything in its way before bending itself backwards and headed once again at the copy nin. Kakashi's eyes widened before he shined away from the attack, reappearing on top of a tree branch. Once again the attack redirected itself towards the Jounin, and came upon him at a faster speed. Kakashi quickly slammed his palms to the ground. Doton, Dochu Aigyo no Jutsu. At the same moment that he slapped the ground, the attack crashed down on him, resulting in a giant explosion which left a 20-foot crater. Naruto stuck onto a nearby tree staring at the damage. As the smoke cleared, he found no remains of his sensei. So he escaped below. I need to flush him out. Stretching out his right hand, he began to form a Rasengan. The blue orb of chakra rested on his palm. More chakra. Pumping in more power, the ball of rotating chakra started to grow in size, and its color went from light blue to a dark shade of indigo. This should do it. Jumping off the tree, he descended with a powered-up Rasengan in hand, upon the crater that Kakashi was formerly on before he disappeared. Odama Rasengan. The attack deepened the already existing crater and ruptured the surrounding grounds, causing chunks of land to spring forth. Kakashi emerged from one of the rocks that sprung up due to the attack, his eyes the size of dinner plates. What the hell? Jiraiya-sama, I understand Naruto learning taijutsu and ninjutsu at an advanced level, but that technique took the cake. Naruto spotted Kakashi staring at him with glazed eyes. Sensei, catching Kakashi's attention, I've found you. The Jounin and his student locked eyes. After a moment passed, both of them ran through seals. Katon Zukaku. Doton, Doria Hiki. Raiton, Raryu Enden. Hayaton, Haryu Moko. Hayaton, Tsubame Fubuki. Kanai Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Suiton, Teppadama. Katon, Hausenka no Jutsu. Suiton, Hahanryu. Suiton, Suikoden no Jutsu. Raiton, John. Suiton, Kaihoden. The onlookers stared at the jutsus flying about, their heads turning left and right as each jutsu was announced. Looks like Kakashi's chakra reserves have gained quite a bit, Jiraiya stated as Naruto spewed out a Katon, Karya Enden at Kakashi, who countered. Yeah, hard to believe, being as lazy as Shikamaru and all. Asuma replied as he lit a cigarette, which was extinguished quickly by splash of water by one of Kakashi's Suiton jutsus. Shikamaru glared at his cancer-smoking sensei before sighing, troublesome. Knowing Naruto, this may take a while. Niji thought out loud as his Byakugan kept an eye on the two battling nins. No, Jiraiya said, catching everyone's attention, increased reserve Kakashi may have, he's going to run out before Naruto in this battle of attrition. I bet you that he's planning to end this soon. Raiton, Raryu no Tatsumaki. Both sensei and student cried out in unison. Two tornadoes of lightning confronted each other, battling for dominance but to no avail as both dissipated in a stalemate. Kakashi and Naruto stood 60 feet from each other, their surroundings charred, crushed and soaked from their jutsu battle. Both nins were breathing for a bit of air, Kakashi more than Naruto. Almost out of chakra, I need to end this now, the copy nin mused while looking at his student who was faring better than he was. Naruto, let's raise the stakes. One last charge, winner take all? The blonde genin smirked, show me what you got, sensei. Kakashi set his right arm pointing down, while his left hand held his right wrist. Better be ready for the chakra depletion I'm going to get after this battle. Sanona no Yuri Raikiri. An enormous discharge of chakra, larger than the one before, emerged from Kakashi's right hand as lightning wrapped around it once again. This time the lightning was significantly stronger as nearby grass dried and the ground below the copy nin became scorched. The color of the lightning seemed almost purple in color instead of its normal blue. Naruto looked in wonder at his sensei and his jutsu. This is my first and true Raikiri, Kakashi stated, answering the questioning look on his student's face. So my eternal rival has pulled out his ace, Guy shouted in glee. All of them were now sitting near the three training posts again since the ground has dried due to Naruto and Kakashi's Raiton and Katon jutsus. The true Raikiri, I've never seen it, Kurenai mused. Well, that makes most of us, Shizen replied as Asuma, Genma, Sakura, Shikamaru and Team Guy nodded. Been a while since I've seen him use that, Tsunade said as she turned to her teammate. Yeah, the last time he's done it was in the Third Great Shinobi War. Jiraiya mused. Tsunade moved closer to the Gamma Sennin and whispered, seems he's not using his Dijitsu. I don't think he wants to reveal it yet. Most likely to avoid the multitude of questions and problems he may get later on, he replied. That or he's saving it as a last resort, the slug Sennin stated. Naruto stared curiously at the jutsu that Kakashi had in hand. Should I use the Sharingan and intercept or use Otama Rasengan again? I don't want to show my Kekai Genkai yet, and using Otama Rasengan against his powered-up Raikiri is going to have consequences on both of us. What to do? Wait. I can use that technique. Extending his right arm out with his palms open, he started to gather chakra. Kakashi and the onlookers, excluding Jiraiya, stared in awe as a sword of wind formed in Naruto's hands. Kaze no Rasen. The white-haired Jounin focused on Naruto, who was preparing to strike. Kakashi charged at him, Raikiri tearing and scorching the ground below. The blonde reached into his pouch and gripped a three-tipped kunai and flung it at Kakashi with immense force. The Jounin, seeing an incoming projectile aimed at his head, quickly tilted his head while continuing to advance. The kunai flew past him and stuck itself into a tree a foot behind Kakashi. Naruto quickly charged right in front of Kakashi. The moment he dodged the three-pronged kunai, his Kaze no Rasen clashed with Kakashi's Raikiri, causing sparks of lightning fly and gusts of winds blow through the trees. For a minute the two attacks seemed to be in a stalemate, but soon Naruto's sword began to lose its form. Seeing this, Kakashi looked at his student, who showed no emotion. This struggle is useless, Naruto. My Raikiri is dominating your jutsu. Naruto smirked at his sensei. Whoever said that I was going to overpower your Raikiri? Kakashi's eyes widened as Naruto disappeared in a flash of yellow and blue. Before the Jounin can comprehend the situation, a blade of wind was pitted near his neck. Naruto stood behind him, Kaze no Rasen pitted to Kakashi's neck on one hand, and the three-pronged kunai he threw earlier in the other. Kiroi Senko no Jutsu, Hiraishin no Jutsu. This technique, how? Kakashi then spotted the three-pronged kunai and remembered the projectile he dodged earlier upon charging at Naruto. I see, excellent tactic, you've surpassed me already, Naruto. It seems I won, any sensei? Naruto stated as he deactivated his jutsu. Kakashi did the same with his Raikiri and looked at his student. Yes you have, Naruto, yes you have. Kakashi's eyes formed an upside-down U shape, indicating him smiling. The two looked at each other before both erupted in a bit of laughter. Tsunade's voice caught the two nin's attention. The winner of this exhibition is Uzumaki Naruto. Tsunade and Jiraiya, along with everyone else, began to walk towards Kakashi and Naruto. The blonde genin sat himself down onto a fallen log and stared at the clouds. I need some ramen. Naruto sighed as he leaned on a branch of a tree that was trashed down with his fight against Kakashi. Looking at the oncoming crowd consisting of his friends and acquaintances, he couldn't help but think that promoting to Jounin would result in being drowned by work. After he saw Kakashi fill out a report after the mission from Wave, which consisted of an inch worth of paper, he wasn't quite sure if he wanted that much workload on him. Things are going to get so troublesome. He sighed once again. Well, if I hadn't fought you myself, I would have thought you became lazy during your training trip with that statement of yours. We already have a Shikamaru, we definitely don't need another. Kakashi said while flipping a page in his perverted orange book, Ika Idol. It's not that I'm being lazy, it's just that never mind. Oh hey. I got a present for you, sensei. The blonde said while reaching into his shuriken pouch. You're definitely going to like this, knowing you. The white-haired nin raised his head out of his book and looked at his student, his one visible eyebrow arched in interest. What does he mean by that? Where the hell are you? Ah. Here it is, behold Kakashi-sensei. The newest addition to the Ika series. Ika Late Nights. Naruto held out an orange book, its letters of Ika glowing in gold. The group of Chunins, Jounins and Sanins, who were only a few meters at the time, overheard this interesting piece of information, causing the kunoichis to quickly glare at Jiraiya, a malicious aura rolling off them in waves. The silver-haired Sannin gulped and unconsciously took a step back away. Jiraiya, tell me, the slug Sannin cracked her knuckles, what the hell did you do to him? Wait, Tsunade, I can explain. The Gamma Sannin frantically said while sweating bullets at his slowly approaching former teammate. You turned him into a pervert. The kunoichis cried out in unison. Soon a chakra-enhanced fist met Jiraiya's face and sent him flying towards Kakashi, who dodged his body by stepping towards Naruto. Naruto, how? When? Can I? The Sharingan Jounin asked while ignoring the cursing he was hearing from Jiraiya's direction. Well, Ero-sen gave it to me about a year and a half ago, telling me it's a good way to kill time while recuperating from training. At first I was hesitant, but there was one day when I was training on Suiton and Kenjutsu with Kage Bunshins for a day and a half straight that I quickly wiped out my reserves and had to rest the most of the next day because of severe chakra exhaustion. Naruto paused, taking a breath, and looked at Kakashi, who was eagerly listening. He also spied the others trying to hear their conversation, but ignored them. Anyway, during the time I was resting, he gave me the book, telling me that I had nothing better to do. At first I didn't even want the book to exist, but lying down all day got really boring. So I decided to listen to him that one time, and opened up the pages of that smut for literature. "Hey! Those books are a work of art!" shouted Jiraiya, whose body couldn't be seen due to the rubble that he was buried in, but the tiny shaking of the fallen trees that piled on top of him proved that he was still alive for now. The blonde genin glared at the direction of his Sennin sensei, annoyed at being interrupted. By now Tsunade and the others have gathered around both Naruto and Kakashi, all of whom listening to the conversation, though the kunoichi seemed to be twitching and casting glares to where Jiraiya is. Moving on, you can say that after recovering from massive blood loss due to nosebleeds, I actually found the book quite interesting. I can see why you like Ika Ika, not a bad read when you get past the smut. Ha! So the Gaki has finally seen the light. That is Ika Ika. I couldn't be more proud of my student. The Gamma Sennin finally dragged himself out of the rubble, shaking off the dirt from his clothes. But he was interrupted by multiple kunais, dozens of poison needles, a painful genjutsu, featuring yaoi, and 2 superpowered fists that sent him spiraling down to the ground again. Each of the male shinobis cast sympathetic looks at Jiraiya and felt a bit of fear from their female comrades, all whom surrounded the perverted Sannin's fallen body with evil glares. Kakashi quickly looked back at the book his student was holding out. "See, can I?" Naruto looked at his sensei with a foxy grin. "Well, I did say I have a present for you, didn't I?" Upon hearing that answer, the jounin grabbed the book and held the blonde in a tight embrace. "Naruto, I want to tell you that I always loved being your sensei." The other's sweat dropped at this display. "YOSH. Kakashi has finally accepted the flames of youth," Guy shouted enthusiastically. Lee was about to join in but was stopped when Kakashi sent a "I will castrate you" look to the spandex-wearing duo. Taking her eyes off her former teammate and to the other males, Tsunade, deciding to punish Jiraiya later and focus on the task at hand, cleared her throat, catching everyone's attention. "Now then, let's get to business." The group of Nins settled down and set their eyes on their Hokage. "You, Asuma, Kurenai, Guy, Genma, and Kakashi have seen Naruto's performance today. What is your opinion on his ranking?" Naruto adopted an emotionless face and looked at the jounins. Shikamaru, Sakura, Shizen, and Team Guy also stared in silence as they were awaiting the verdict. Asuma was the first to speak. "I, Asuma Sarutobi, a proctor of this match, accept Uzumaki Naruto to the jounin ranks." Kurenai followed. "I, Yuhi Kurenai, the second proctor, accept Uzumaki Naruto to our ranks." "I, the beautiful beast of Konoha, Mato Guy, the most youthful of proctors, accept Naruto-kun to join us." Guy shouted, doing his infamous nice guy pose, his teeth sparkling unnaturally, blinding his comrades. "Leave it to Guy-sensei to brighten things up," Naruto mused. "It's moments like these that I wish I didn't have." The Byakugan Niji groaned at his sensei's display. Taking out the samban from his mouth, Genma came next. "I, Shirena Genma, another proctor, accept Uzumaki Naruto to the ranks." All eyes turned to Kakashi, who was giggling at his newly acquired book. The jounin felt a spike of killer intent and looked up from his read to see Tsunade glaring at him with a "I will burn that piece of crap" literature look. Needless to say, Kakashi quickly put away his precious book to the safe confines of his shuriken pouch. Clearing his throat, his face became serious before replying, "I, Hataki Kakashi, the examiner, accept my student, Uzumaki Naruto, to the ranks." "Are these final?" Tsunade cautiously asked. The jounins remained quiet, silently answering her question. The blonde Hokage looks at Naruto, whose face was emotionless but his eyes were taking in the whole situation. "Well then, Naruto," the blonde genin looked to Tsunade, who had a smile on her facade. "Congratulations, as of now you are a jounin of Konoha, be proud of your accomplishment." The group cheered at Naruto's success while he himself was grinning widely at his promotion. "YOSH. Naruto-kun's youth has surpassed mine. I must now train harder to become as youthful," Lee cried while copying Guy's pose, smiling at Naruto. The blonde stared at his chunin friend, his attention was focused on Lee's attire. "By Kami! He resembles Guy even more. Right when I thought the similarities couldn't get any more similar. Just what the hell has been going on when I was gone?" Congratulations, Naruto, I expected this from you, Niji said while having a hint of smile on his lips. The newly appointed Jounin looked at his Hyuga friend, his attire, and also caught the blonde's attention. Niji, the only thing you need is a pair of breasts along with a more feminine voice, and you can pass on for a decent chick. Though you'd probably hack me into next month if I said that. Naruto just smiled at Niji, the latter oblivious to the Jinchuriki's thoughts. Tenten came up next by patting the blonde on the back. You gave us quite a show there, Naruto-kun. You want to have a kenjutsu spar sometime? It looks like you're pretty good with your wind sword. Naruto gave a lady-killer grin to Tenten, which didn't go unnoticed by the others. I'd like that. I also want to see how well you do with a sword, Tenten-chan. The Chunin blushed at his suggestive answer and to the chan suffix. The gathered shinobis gawked at the blonde, some raised their eyebrows in amusement, mainly the males, others blushed slightly, mainly the kunoichis. Naruto, I don't know if I should be proud or be pissed that you're surpassing me also in the women department. Kakashi silently wept, his anime tears hidden by his book. Shinaro. What the hell was that? That's definitely not the Naruto from before. Sakura was lost in her thoughts due to the actions of her teammate. Hey, keep that charm up, Gaki, and you'll have fangirls and fanwomen. Tsunade mused. Man, Naruto, you just became more troublesome. Shikamaru smiled at his blonde friend who grinned back. Nice to see you too, Shika. Still getting nagged by your mom and Ino for being a lazy ass? He chuckled. Troublesome women, the lazy Chunin sighed, sitting himself down on the same tree as Naruto. Sakura stepped up closer to her blonde teammate. Congrats, Naruto, she said nervously. Thanks, Sakura, he hesitantly replied. The kunoichi felt a pang in her heart to the lack of chan in her name. The missing suffix also didn't go unnoticed by the others. The two teammates of Team 7 just stared at each other, silence filling the area, and a feeling of awkwardness was present in the air. Jiraiya, who was now standing up from his crater, decided to break the tension. Alright, that's enough with the congratulations. I believe you have some things to say, Tsunade. The blonde Hokage sent a grateful look at her former teammate, who leaned himself onto a nearby tree, as the tension broke. Noticing that all eyes were on her, she spoke. Yes, I do. Naruto, come to my office at 6 p.m. That's about an hour from now. Kakashi, I need you there as well. Guy, Asuma, Kurenai, Genma, you're dismissed. As for you, Sakura, your shift at the hospital has already started, so I suggest you hurry. That is all. Hi. The Jounins, with the exception of Niji, replied, all of them using Shunshin, disappearing from sight. Tsunade-sama. Sakura looked at her sensei, who had an apologetic look. I'm sorry, Sakura, but you're already late by 20 minutes. We don't have anyone to cover up for you right now. I'm sorry, Shizen, go with her please. The slug Sannin looked at the brunette medic Nin, who nodded knowingly. Hi, Tsunade-sama, come Sakura. Putting a hand on Sakura's shoulder. The pink-haired kunoichi turned her head to her teammate. Naruto, it's good to see you're back. Before he could give a reply, both medic Nins disappeared in a puff of smoke. Naruto stared at the dissipating wisps of smoke. Yeah, glad to be back, Sakura. Closing his eyes, he sighed before standing up from the tree and started to stretch his arms. Well, since I don't have to meet you in an hour, I'm going to get something to eat at Ichiraku. Hey, wait, Lee and I will join you on your way. We're heading to Training Ground 14, and that's on the same direction as Ichiraku anyway. Tenten said, looking to Naruto, who had an eyebrow raised. YOSH. We can now ask Naruto-kun about his youthful travels, Lee yelled, pumping a fist in the air. I might as well tag along, seeing as training with Hayashi-sama isn't until 3 hours from now. Niji replied while eyebrows twitching at Lee's continuous ranting. Well, I got to go. Chuji and Ino are meeting me at Chuji's favorite barbecue place. Don't want Ino being troublesome just because I'm a little late. Shikamaru yawned, giving a wave to his friends before he disappeared in a whirl of leaves. Wait, Naruto, Tsunade said with a demanding voice. The blonde looked up at the Hokage. What's up? The slug Sannin took out a scroll from one of her pockets and tossed it to Naruto, who quickly caught it. Here's the address to your new apartment. Your old apartment complex was torn down by severe flooding during a storm that hit about half a year ago. All the things that weren't lost have been moved to your new apartment, and new furniture has been added. Open the chakra seal inside the scroll to get the keys to your new home. Alright, if that's all, then I'll see you later, Bachan, he said as he and Team Guy blurred out of the forest. Tsunade had a tick on her forehead due to irritation from her surrogate brother. Damn brat, even with all that maturity he still calls me by that damn name. At least he doesn't call you Ero-senin, Jiraiya replied while opening his eyes and looked at his fuming teammate. Whatever, come on Jiraiya, I need some sake to relieve myself from all this stress. The slug Sannin grabbed his arm, dragging him out of the training grounds. I don't think that drinking is wise, not at this early hour. We can't have an irate, drunk Hokage running Konoha now, can we? Jiraiya replied, wincing from the tight grip Tsunade had on his arm. Shut up. Naruto and Team Guy walked down the street, all of them in a conversation on the happenings in Konoha during Naruto's absence. They came to a stop at the blonde's favorite ramen stand, Ichiraku's, which was now larger than the last time he was here. Oh yeah. I forgot to tell you that this place renovated when you were gone. Apparently they added other foods on their menu when their number one customer temporarily left. The variety they have along with their good prices brought in a lot of people, Tenten said, answering Naruto's unspoken question. The blonde just nodded in response while looking at the new Ichiraku. Instead of a stand, it was now the size of a small restaurant. There were a dozen of tables inside with 5 chairs on each table. The counter now extended from the outside and arches into the restaurant, adding more seats for customers. Behind the counter was Ayam with a cash register, and farther in was the kitchen, which was hidden by a curtain, but a silhouette of her father could be seen. Alright Naruto, we'll see you later, Tenten said, while Lee did a pose bidding farewell and Niji just waved his hand. The blonde continued to look at the retreating backs of his friends until they were gone from the horizon. Well, time to eat some ramen. It's been a while since I've ate any. Walking towards the counter, he spotted Ayam busy counting money while inputting it into the register. Hearing one of the chimes attached to the flaps near the entrance signaling a newly arrived customer, she spoke, while not raising her head, "Welcome to Ichiraku's, I'll be with you in a moment." "It's alright Ayame, just admiring with what you've done with the place at the moment. Seems you guys have been doing well the past 3 years, any?" A familiar voice replied. Her hands nearly dropped the rai she was counting. Slowly turning her head to the voice, she saw a familiar blonde gently smiling at her. "And Naruto?" she stuttered. Walking up to the counter next to her, his right hand cupped her chin, which caused her to blush slightly, the one and only. Before Naruto could react, he was trapped in a tight hug from Ayam. The slight smell of miso ramen whiffed his nose. Wonder if she also tastes like miso and oh. Bad hentai thoughts. Bad. Steeling himself, he gently broke himself from the embrace and smiled at the ramen cashier. "So how are things, Ayame?" "Things have been quiet without you. I'm glad you're back. Wait here." Ayam left towards the kitchen where her father was cooking. Naruto didn't have to wait long as a loud voice boomed from the kitchen. "What?" A man in his 40s came out of the kitchen and rushed to the blonde who was seated calmly at the counter. Tucci stopped right in front of Naruto, eyeing the blonde before giving him a pat in the shoulder with a smile. "It's about time my number one customer got back. Things weren't the same without you, kid." The ramen chef heartily laughed. "It's good to be back, old man. I like what you've done with the place," the blonde replied while motioning his hands at the restaurant. "Yeah, well, I didn't know that adding a few things to the menu and diet ramen would bring in a lot of business. Anyway, enough about that. What are you having?" he eagerly asked. "Bring me 3 bowls of miso ramen, old man," Naruto heartily replied. "Coming right up." Tucci chuckled while happily walking back to the kitchen. As her father began working on Naruto's ramen, Ayam took her time to look at the blonde's changes over the years. She noticed his blonde cherubic face was now replaced with an angular and mature facade. The baby fat in his body all gone, revealing a muscular and lean build. Along with his new wardrobe, she found herself fighting off a mild blush on her cheeks. Naruto caught Ayam staring at him from the corner of his eye and inwardly smirked at the blush that she was trying to cover up. He found it slightly amusing that he was having these effects on women, something he didn't have prior to leaving Konoha. Deciding to tease her a little more, he turned his head and locked eyes with her. "Like what you see, ain't?" the blonde smirked. The blush that she was valiantly fighting off rushed out in full force, her mind racing a mile a minute before rushing to the kitchen. Naruto chuckled at the sight of the retreating ramen cashier. Hiro-sensei was right. Seduction can be a very effective tool on the opposite sex, he mused while reminiscing about his training days. A minute later, both Ayam and Tucci came out with Naruto's order, the former still sporting a slight blush. "Enjoy, kid, these are on the house as a welcome back gift." The ramen chef smiled at the slightly drooling blonde. "Thanks, old man, itadakimasu," he hungrily replied. Naruto dug in on his first bowl. Though he wasn't as feral and savage with his ramen as he was when he was younger, the food was still consumed in a fast rate. Ayam, from the cash register, looked on at the blonde whom was eating vigorously at his food. A smile came to her face. Even with his new changes, his love for ramen is at least the same. Good old Naruto-kun. Finishing the last bowl, he got up to take leave. Looking at Ayam one more time, he said his goodbye. Arigato Ayam-chan, the ramen is as good as ever. Tell the old man that I'll be back tomorrow. I have to meet Tsunade-be-chan in 40 minutes, and I doubt that she'll like to see me with ragged clothes. His fingers pointed to the damage his clothes received due to his earlier fight with Kakashi. Ayam nodded and smiled in response as she watched him exit the restaurant. Following the directions from the scroll, Naruto set out to find his new home. 10 minutes of building hopping, he found himself in a middle-class area near the Hokage Tower. Slightly frowning, the blonde looked once again at the scroll. Well, the directions say it's right here, so I guess I'll just look around a bit more. 2 minutes later, he found himself in front of an apartment room, numbered 66, of a large, decent complex. That's 2 blocks away from the Hokage Tower. Pumping chakra into the seal within the scroll, a key emerged from a puff of smoke. Taking the key, he opened the door to his new apartment. The first thing he noticed was the smell of fresh pine and disinfectant, meaning that someone has cleaned the room not too long ago. The room was much larger than his old one. The latter was only meant for one person, but his new one had much more sufficient space. A decent-sized kitchen with an average fridge was set right next to the dining table. To the left of the dining table was a small bar counter and shelves to store in drinks. On the other side of the apartment was a quite large living room composed of 2 couches and a TV set. I don't think I'm going to be watching television anytime soon. But thanks anyway, Bachan. He smiled gratefully at his appliance. Walking down further, he found himself in a small hallway. A guest bathroom to the left, along with what seemed to be a spare bedroom/storage room right across it. Hitting the end of the hall, he found the main bedroom. It was nothing fancy, but it was much better than his old rundown apartment. A queen-sized bed lay in the middle of the room with a night table to the side, with a lamp on top. Looking around, he spied some shuriken and kunai tools that he previously had laid on top of the table, a picture of Team 7 in their genin days propped right next to them. He smiled at the reminder of his good times in the past before resuming his tour. He spied a door and opened it to find a bathroom slightly larger than the guest restroom. Guess I'll wash up before I go. I still have close to half an hour, sufficient time. Taking out a slightly large scroll from his shuriken pouch, he opened it, revealing a blood seal. Nicking his thumb with his slightly elongated canines, he ran his blood through the seal. An audible pop was heard and a large bag appeared. Naruto opened the bag and took out clothes similar to the ones he was wearing, along with a dozen of scrolls. He opened the closet next to the bathroom door and set down his clothing along with his scrolls. Taking out a towel, he entered the bathroom and closed the door behind him. I got to think, Bachan, this apartment is definitely better than the last one. So what are you planning to do with the council, Tsunade? Jiraiya asked his teammate while leaning against the wall of the Hokage office. I'm going to get them to see the truth. They were always neutral to Naruto, so hopefully they will listen to reason. She sighed, leaning on her chair, taking a swig of sake from her saucer. Yeah, with Danzo's death things have been pretty quiet and rather peaceful with the council. Things should be easier for now, he replied while sipping his own sake. Hopefully it would stay that way, though. Tsunade was cut off by a knock from her door. The door opened, revealing the Chunin Izumo, Kotetsu's friend. Hokage-sama, Naruto-san is here to see you. Send him in, she said with a dismissive wave. Izumo bowed before leaving the room. Tsunade finished off her sake before throwing the bottle to the garbage. At least he hasn't become lazy and late like Kakashi. Jiraiya chuckled before finishing his own alcohol beverage. A minute later, the door opened again, revealing Naruto in fresh clothing. The blonde walked up in the middle of the room before smiling. All right, Bachan, what do you need me for? A vein throbbed at the Hokage's forehead, and before anyone could blink, a paperweight made its way towards Naruto at great speeds. The said blonde quickly caught the projectile an inch before it made contact with his face. Don't call me that. Hi, Tsunade-sama, Naruto replied while setting the paperweight on her desk. Tsunade reached out from a rather large drawer, taking out a jounin vest. She handed it to the other blonde, who gratefully took it from her. Taking off his blue robe-like cape, he put on the dark green vest, which fitted perfectly in his opinion, before donning on his robe cape back on. So how do I look? He curiously asked. You look you're ready to steal hearts of women, if you want my opinion. Jiraiya chuckled. Tsunade sent a small glare to her teammate before looking back at Naruto. It looks good on you, Naruto. Welcome to being a jounin. Arigato, Bachan. Oh hey, nice apartment you got me. It's a major improvement from my last one, he said with a smile on his face. Glad you like it, brat. Anyway, Kakashi better not be late, or else Tsunade was once again cut off as the said jounin appeared in a puff of smoke. Yo, he said, raising his hand in a wave. Naruto chuckled slightly as Jiraiya snickered at Kakashi and Tsunade, the former confused at their exchange. Recovering from slight embarrassment, the blonde Godane cleared her throat, silencing everyone. Kakashi, glad you can make it on time. I need you to show Naruto the regulations, meeting places and lounges for Jounin, seeing as he's still new to his rank. She spoke while eyeing the attentive Nin. Hi Tsunade-sama. Come on Naruto, might as well show you some friends of mine first, as you might be seeing them often from now on, especially on missions. Kakashi said, turning his gaze to his former student. Hi. The blonde replied, walking with the white-haired Nin out the door. Before he exited the room, he turned his head to Tsunade and Jiraiya, bidding them farewell. I'll see you around, Bachan, Ero-sennin. The door closed, leaving the two Sanins alone once again in the office. Jiraiya sat himself down onto a chair near the Hokage's desk. Reaching inside his pockets, he retrieved a scroll and set it down on the table. Here's a report from Hiro about his time with Naruto that I just got from the Gaki himself today. It explains all that he's done, and includes his training and missions he's accepted and done, he said. Tsunade sighed as she eyed the report in front of her. Just what I need, more work. Grabbing a large jug of sake from her desk compartment, she poured the alcohol into her saucer before downing it in one motion. This is going to be a long night. Jiraiya grabbed the jug and poured himself some sake, sipping it down slowly. Be lucky I'm here helping you. I could be doing my research right now, he said indignantly. The blonde Hokage glared at her companion. Shut up, pervert. The sound of rushing winds howled through the mountains as a kunoichi dashed down the mountain at top speed. A cloud Hittite on her forehead shined from the moonlight, and was the only thing that could be distinguished, as the rest was a blur of indigo. Kyuso, they were able to still overpower me even with Nikomata. I can't afford to get captured, and I can't let them into Kumo. Forgive me, Nagisama, but I need to leave Kumogakure for the time being. She was cut off from her thoughts as the three-bladed scythe swung right in front of her. Bending her body back, she dodged the blade by a hair. TCH, thought you could get away? A voice rang out from the darkness. Two figures appeared on top of a large rock right in front of her, cutting her off. Both figures had matching black cloaks with a design of red clouds. One had dark silver hair slicked back, the other had a Hittite of Takigakure, his face hidden by his cloak. You really need to work on your speed, Haiden, that was pitiful. The missing Nin from Takigakure said to his partner. Shut the hell up, Kakuzu. It's because you screwed up that she was able to run away. The silver-haired Nin known as Haiden replied. In the end we have her cornered. Let's get this one done soon. I'd like to go after someone with an actual bounty on their head, he replied. That's all you care about, your freaking money? Haiden said while retrieving his scythe via the rope he has strapped on his arm. The kunoichi readied herself for battle, drawing two kunais and gripping one in each hand. Yujito. Nibi? Run, they're too strong for you. But where to run to? I've used up nearly all my reserves and I can't handle any more of your chakra after that transformation. She was brought out of her musing as Haiden's scythe once again soared to her direction. Jumping to her right, she avoided the weapon, but this set her at Kakuzu's line of fire. Two masks held by hundreds of black thread that attached to Kakuzu's back emerged, each gathering chakra. Futon, Atsugai. Raiton, John. The two masks each blasted a powerful elemental force that headed straight to Yujito. The kunoichi was about to avoid the blow but was held down by Haiden. You idiot! Are you trying to kill yourself? She shrieked. Haiden maniacally laughed before replying, that would be true, but you see I can't die. Well, more like I won't die. Don't worry, you won't die either, bitch, at least not yet. The two jutsus were dangerously near the Jinchuriki. Unable to escape the Akatsuki members' hold on her, she shut her eyes, readying herself for the pain. A large explosion lit the night before all that remained was smoke. Kakuzu smirked at the dissipating smoke but was quickly gone when he saw Yujito unharmed. The kunoichi opened her eyes in confusion. She saw the land in front of her form into a crater. I'm safe, but how? What the hell happened, Kakuzu? Haiden yelled while still holding Yujito. I happened. A gruff and familiar voice behind him answered. The silver-haired Nuke-nin turned around only to meet a blue fist ram itself in his face, forcing his hold on Yujito to loosen and sending him flying to a tree. Yujito looked at her savior in gratitude, but it quickly turned to distrust and confusion when she saw that he was also wearing an Akatsuki cloak. What are you doing, Kisame? Kakuzu asked, anger apparent in his voice. I'm just being myself, you immortal freaks. He sneered. Is disobeying orders being yourself? So you going traitor on the organization, fish freak? Hayden yelled with malice as he was using his scythe to help him stand up from the tree he was punched to by Kisame. It can't be called betrayal if we were never loyal to it from the start. Another voice spoke. A figure appeared in a whirl of leaves and revealed another Akatsuki member. This one had crimson-red eyes with tomo marks spinning rapidly. So, going traitor to Uchiha? Kakuzu said with venom. Yujito stared at the 4 Akatsuki members in confusion before yelling, what's going on? Itachi looked at the female Jinchuriki emotionlessly, his gaze then turned to his partner. Kisame. The former Miss Nin nodded in response and hit Yujito on the back of the head, knocking her out. I don't know what you two are planning, but you're not getting away, Kakuzu said as thousands of black threads emerged from his body. His body, now covered with the black wires, was doubled in size and 2 more masks emerged, totaling 4 altogether. Lord Jashin shall have your blood. Hayden maliciously laughed as he readied his scythe to strike. Itachi set himself ready whilst Kisame unwrapped Samahata from its bandages. Silence ensued as the 2 teams looked at each other analytically. Hayden was once again about to throw his scythe when a white hand grabbed his shoulder from behind. He quickly glared at the figure behind him but was quickly displaced by confusion. Zetsu, what are you doing here? The Venus flytrap Nukenin looked at the 4 Akatsuki members before turning his steel gaze to Kisame and Itachi. Shirsho has sent me to deal with the traitors. Itachi looked at the Zetsu with his emotionless facade. He could make things a bit difficult. But still not a problem. So it's 3 on 2, huh? Well, come on you punks, Samahata's been itching for a fight. Kisame yelled charismatically. Zetsu smirked at the Kiri Nukenin before replying, make that 4 on 2. The other Akatsuki members were confused until a figure came out of the group of nearby trees. His face hidden by an odd orange mask that has a hole for his right eye. His body covered in all black clothing. So you've brought your subordinate, his name was Tobi, right? Kakuzu stated more than asked. Tobi nodded and replied, it's good to see you Kakuzu-san, Hayden-san, Itachi-san, and Kisame-san. The odd Nin bowed his head while Hayden glared at the newcomer. Now's not the freaking time to be polite, damn it. The numbers are in our favor, so let's get this on. I will condemn them all in the name of Lord Jashin. His large scythe flew at Kisame at a fast speed. The Kiri Nukenin stepped to the side, taking a hold on the attached rope. He pulled on it with his inhuman strength, causing Hayden to be thrown in the air and headed in his direction. The religion-devoted Nin didn't have time to react as he soared in the sky before Samahata cleaved across his upper body, sending him crashing to the mountainside. That idiot never thinks before he acts. Kakuzu sighed before sending his masks to attack Itachi. Futon Atsugai. Katon Bakufu. The futon boosted fire of one of the masked jutsus, increasing its heat and speed as it headed towards Itachi. The Sharingan user stared impassively at the combination attack before his Sharingan spun rapidly. Manjikyu Sharingan. The 3 tomo marks transformed to what looked like a 3-bladed shuriken. Stealing his gaze, Itachi set his eyes on the oncoming attack. Amaterasu. A jet of black flames erupted from his eyes and enveloped Kakuzu's attack. The oncoming stream of dark flames pierced through and headed for Kakuzu. The said Akatsuki member's eyes widened slightly before jumping out of harm's way, narrowly avoiding the black flames that scorched and melted the earth. Kisame whistled at his partner's attack but was suddenly on the defensive from a blow from Zetsu's kunais. The Kiri Nin was about to retaliate but Hayden's scythe forced him to block. Seeing an opening, Zetsu sent powerful kick to Kisame's ribs, sending him skidding back a few meters. This is getting interesting. The shark-like Nin grinned, showing his razor-sharp teeth. Yes, too bad your end is now. A voice below him replied. Zetsu's hands sprouted from the ground and grasped Kisame's ankles tightly, limiting his mobility. Before he can set himself free, Hayden made his way to him, his scythe ready to swing. Kisame noticed Hayden's figure but was too late as he made his way to him. Shit! Die! The gray-haired Akatsuki member yelled as threw his scythe with immense force. The projectile sliced through the air and headed towards the trapped Kisame, who was struggling to free himself from Zetsu. As the scythe was 3 meters from Kisame, a small clay bird made contact with the weapon, causing an explosion that deflected the blade and landing next to Itachi, who was facing off Tobi and Taijutsu while countering Kakuzu's jutsus. What the hell? Hayden thought while retrieving his scythe. Now out of harm's way, Kisame, using his superior strength, grabbed one of Zetsu's hand and lifted him from the ground before sending an empowered punch to his stomach, sending him crashing to a tree 10 meters away. Zetsu slowly rose from the broken tree, slightly dizzy from the force of the attack. Suddenly, two distinct chakra signatures flared. The group of Nins momentarily stopped their fighting and spied the new arrivals. A large clay bird descended from the sky and landed next to the unconscious form of Yujito. On top of it were two more Akatsuki members. One with long blonde hair, and the other with short red hair. "It seems we came just in time for a party, any Sasori Dana?" the blonde one asked his red-headed partner. "Hi, right on time. Seems you're holding up pretty good there, Kisame, Itachi," the redhead said. "Che. What took you two so long, having an argument about art again?" the Kiri Nupnin replied. Itachi looked at Kakuzu and smirked. "Me, Kisame, Sasori and Deidara. The odds are even, let's see how you fare against us now." Kakuzu cursed inwardly. "It doesn't matter, you traitors will die here," he growled. Itachi had an amused look on his face, which infuriated him even more. "What's so funny?" "Humph, fool," he replied, closing his eyes after. A second later he reopened them and revealed his Manjikyu once again. Kakuzu accidentally locked eyes with his momentarily, but that was enough for Itachi. The wire-using Akatsuki member suddenly felt himself unable to steer his gaze off the weasel's eyes. Itachi smirked at Kakuzu, who was struggling with his Sharingan-induced genjutsu. The Jujutsu wielder's face became serious as his Manjikyu began to spin. One word left his mouth that sent terror into his Akatsuki opponent. Tsukiyomi. Darkness. Everything was nothing but a dark void, an empty world, cold and frightening. The world of Tsukiyomi. He has only heard of its powers, and now he himself has fallen victim to this jutsu. Looking around more, he finds himself chained tightly to a crucifix, leaving him open and vulnerable. His eyes landed in front of him where the man responsible for his predicament stood calmly, the traitorous weasel, Uchiha Itachi. "Enjoying the view?" the Sharingan wielder asked rhetorically. "Fei. Go screw yourself, Uchiha. You think this genjutsu can take me on? I've lived for centuries and experienced many things. My body can take on any torture you can give me. Your efforts are vain." Kakuzu spoke with a slightly amused tone. "Yes, I see that. After almost all of your original body has been replaced, but there is one thing that has stayed with you," replied Itachi coolly. "And what would that be?" he replied with amusement still present in his voice. Pulling out his right arm from his Akatsuki cloak, Itachi pointed to his skull, "Your head, or to be more specific, your brain." Kakuzu's eyes slightly widened, his amused attitude now replaced with dead seriousness and slight worry. "And your point is?" "No matter how used to pain your body becomes, there is a limit to how much strain your mind can take, and your mind has been active for centuries, making it less resistant to strain," Itachi explained emotionlessly. "That may be true, but there is no place in my body that can feel any pain or any feeling for that matter, so your plan has failed you and you were supposed to be a genius," the restrained Akatsuki mocked. The Jujutsu wielder felt a smirk cross his lips. "Imbecile." Extending his right hand, an average katana materialized near his palm. As the sword came to focus, Itachi gripped it tightly before setting his eyes on Kakuzu once again. "For 144 hours you will be stabbed." "You truly are an idiot, Uchiha. I told you that would never work," Kakuzu snickered at the charging Sharingan user. "Through the brain," Itachi finished. His taunts came to an abrupt end as a feeling spread throughout him, one that he hasn't felt in decades. Pain. With a body unused to such a painful sensation due to having not felt it for years, Kakuzu was only able to do one thing: scream. "Greyaha!" His screams in agony continued as he spied the katana that Itachi wielded thrust through the middle of his head. The Uchiha's Sharingan eyes locked with Kakuzu's, the latter showing unbridled anger. Another smirk graced Itachi's face, this time though it was one of sadistic glee. The impaled Akatsuki member's eyes widened at the expression. His will to endure was tested when he heard the next words Itachi spoke. 141 hours, 59 minutes and 59 seconds to go. Kisame grinned wildly as he swung Samehada at Haiden, who frantically parried the sword with his scythe, locking both weapons together. "I'm not hearing any of your 'I'm Lord Jashin's bitch' speeches anymore. What's the matter? Shark got your tongue?" he chuckled. Haiden would have spoke blasphemy about the mockery of his god and that bad pun if he wasn't putting everything he had to keep Samehada at bay. His scythe was worn and sustained heavy damage due to Kisame's inhuman strength, and Samehada's iron scales weren't helping either. Readjusting his grip on Samehada, Kisame pulled his sword backwards. The action resulted in Haiden's scythe to split in two due to Samehada shaving the bar. Smiling at the result, The former Mist Nin didn't waste time and thrust his sword forward to Haiden's abdomen, causing the religious Nin to fly across 20 meters and slamming him onto a boulder. Shark Stud 1, Religious Dumbass 0. Zetsu eyed Sasori warily. Shinobis who use puppet jutsu were a tricky bunch, you never know what they have up their sleeves, and Sasori was probably the best, hands down. Why are you betraying the organization? What do all of you have to gain with this stunt of yours? Zetsu asked cautiously. Sasori stared at him blankly for a moment before replying, we have nothing to gain. Then why are you do? Zetsu spoke but was cut off by the red-haired puppeteer. But we have everything to lose. Zetsu narrowed his eyes at his opponent, explain. Can you not see it? That your Shursho deems us as nothing more but expendable pawns to his desire? A voice behind the former grass Nin asked. Zetsu spun around and found Itachi making his way to him. Behind the Sharingan user was Kakuzu's limp body. Can you not see that we are not so willing to just be used as cannon fodder to his foolish desires of power? The Uchiha continued. Zetsu looked at him emotionlessly, but his eyes burned with intensity. Simpletons like you will never understand the beauty of his goal. His goal is to obtain power through the Bijus and to use it for his sick revenge. He's no better than Orochimaru. Itachi calmly replied. Do not compare Shursho with that damnable snake. Zetsu sneered. What will you do about it? You're outmatched and outclassed. Sasori spoke as he wielded a doll that resembled Sandame Kazekage. The grass Nin quickly surveyed the situation. To the left was Tobi in a near stalemate with Deidara and ninjutsu. To his right was Haiden doing everything he can to get the upper hand on Kisame, but was failing terribly. Finally, right behind Itachi was Kakuzu's fallen body. Whether the nuke Nin was dead or alive, he didn't know. Seeing Zetsu off guard, Sasori attacked with his puppet, pushing chakra into the lifeless figurine. Iron sand flooded out of it and encircled around him, Setetsu Shigure. The iron sand formed into small compact balls before shooting off at Zetsu with frightening speed. Sensing chakra, the grass Akatsuki member looked behind him only to see a multitude of iron bullets heading straight for him. Quickly flashing through seals, Zetsu cried out, Doton, Doria Hiki. Shooting a stream of mud from his mouth, Zetsu formed an earthen wall reinforced with chakra. Sasori stared impassively before smirking at his opponent's defense. Sorry, but that won't work with me. The iron bullets pierced through the defensive wall, some scratching Zetsu's skin while others lodged into his body, causing the nuke Nin to drop his defense. Demit! He gasped as he struggled to keep himself up. My iron sand is also poisonous. Even with your Kekai Genkai you can't stop it from spreading. The best you can do is to prolong your death, Sasori said while making his way to him, Itachi following suit. Shit must Tobi. Haiden! Retreat! Zetsu wheezed while trying to back away from his two opponents. What makes you think we'll let you get away? Kisame yelled while heaving his sword to his shoulder. Using the last ounce of his strength, Zetsu shined next to Kakuzu's body, checking his fallen comrade. Still breathing. A slightly singed Tobi and a heavily bleeding Haiden teleported next to the two. Zetsu looked at his subordinate, giving an unspoken command to which Tobi complied. Well, we have to go now, Itachi-senpai, ja, Tobi said while performing seals. His hand landed on the last seal, causing his body along with his comrades to dissolve into the ground. Before anyone can do anything, the Akatsuki members escaped. Itachi's Sharingan deactivated while Deidara and Sasori put away their respective artistic weapons. Kisame walked over to the trio with Samahata strapped to his back. Let's not stay here for long. Kumo Umbu probably sensed all the chakra we used. It won't be long before they get here, Kisame reasoned. Deidara nodded and looked to Yujito's unconscious form. What about her, yeah? I mean, we did come all this way to make sure her bijou doesn't get extracted, yeah? Leave her, let Kumo handle their shinobis, Sasori replied while leaning himself on a tall rock. Before anyone can say anything else, a figure rushed out from the trees on the mountain ledge. The said figure landed next to the former Akatsuki members, the moonlight shining onto his robes and his hat that had the kanji for lightning. It seems our problems are solved, Itachi spoke emotionlessly while eyeing the newcomer. How are you today, Sandame Reikage-sama? The Reikage took off his hat, revealing a man in his early 40s with short, sand-colored hair with a trimmed brown mustache and short beard. Though the most striking feature was his bronze eyes that glowed like the moon. A group of Umbu emerged and appeared next to the Reikage, each awaiting further orders. To what honor do I have that 4 Akatsuki members are here in my territory with one of my shinobis unconscious? he asked with a hint of anger in his voice. Do not worry yourself, Reikage-sama. We have nothing to do with the current situation as we have detached ourselves from Akatsuki. Itachi replied, obviously the negotiator for the group. And how can I believe your words? He asked with suspicion. For starters, you can have your kunoichi back. As you can see, there's no harm done, besides chakra exhaustion and small wounds from a battle she had with our acquaintances from the organization. The Sharingan wielder once again replied, moving out of the way as the Kage picked up Yujito bridal style and gave her to one of the Anbu. I thank you for giving me back my apprentice, but what are you four up to? The Kage spoke as he steeled his gaze at the four former Akatsuki. The remaining ANBU took a ready stance, preparing to act in a moment's notice. As I've said before, we have detached ourselves from the organization due to inner conflict with our superior. A rebellion? A mutiny? The elder Nin asked. Kisame shook his head before replying, no, old man, a betrayal. Silence filled the clearing as a gust of wind flew by, causing fallen leaves to blow away. The Reikage looked on at the group of four, analyzing them, while Itachi's group remained silent. Seeing no signs of deception, he softened his eyes a bit, but still remained on guard. I will never understand the mind of a Nuke Nin. The Kage chuckled as he broke the silence. Itachi looked on before he spoke, one word of advice. The elder Nin's eyes stood attentive to the young Nuke Nin. I suggest you make some comrades. Just because Akatsuki has suffered the loss of 4 members doesn't mean they won't get more. As you noticed that 2 members were capable to infiltrate and kidnap that kunoichi over there with little trouble. He continued on as he pointed to Yujito. And how do you suggest for Kumo to make some comrades? The Reikage asked inquisitively. The answer is alliances, yeah. With other villages with Jinchuriki, yeah? Deidara said. Alliances? He asked skeptically. Yes, alliances would help, especially with villages that contain others like her. Sasori spoke while looking at the Nibi container. Others like Yujito, the Reikage thought as a bit of surprise etched into him. I suggest you go with Konoha and Suna, both have Jinchurikis with them. The one in Konoha is favored by the Godame, while the one in Suna is the current Kazakage. Itachi said. The leader of Kumogakure thought about his words before eyeing the group warily. Why are you helping us with this? I have told you already that we have our reasons. We will not stand to be used for a twisted man's idiotic ideals. And by helping you keep your Jinchuriki from our leader, we ourselves benefit from getting what you would call payback. Itachi replied coolly while stressing the word leader. So you will become a thorn in his side, any? The elder man asked. If you put it like that, then yes. The Jujutsu wielder said. I see. Well, I thank you once again for saving my apprentice. But the Reikage pulled out a slightly larger than average katana whilst 5 ANBU members took out their own weapons. That doesn't change the fact that all of you are S-class Nuke Nin. Come quietly, and we could reason your trials. You really think you can take us? Even a Kage would be hard-pressed with us, and I doubt any of your Anbu can take us on, said Kisame with a hint of amusement and anticipation. It sure won't hurt to try, wouldn't it? The Sandaime asked. Sasori, Deidara and Kisame kept silent, but sported wild grins while Itachi had a small smirk. The Uchiha activated his Sharingan, intimidating the Anbu, before speaking. I'm sorry, Reikage-sama, we can't do that for 2 reasons. First, we have other things to do than to get imprisoned, and secondly, we're already gone. Before the Kage could say anything, the group of former Akatsuki members lost their forms, revealing 4 columns of water that splashed down to the ground. Mizu Bunshin, the Reikage inwardly groaned. What do we do now, Nagi-sama? A female Anbu asked. The brown-haired Sandaime looked at the 6 ANBU members and the unconscious Yujito. Mei, I need you to take Yujito to the hospital. The rest of you spread out and search this area for anything suspicious. I at least want to get an idea of what happened here. Reikage-sama, can those Nuke Nin be trusted? A male ANBU asked. Nagi thought for a moment before replying, an enemy of my enemy is my friend, at least I hope so, in our case. But that's enough questions for now, you know your tasks, go. Hi! The Anbu chorused and blurred out from view. Putting back his hat on, the Reikage looked at the full moon and the cloudless night. Closing his eyes, he took a breath of mountain air before disappearing into darkness. Konoha and Suna? Well, I guess it won't hurt to try. 2 shinobis walked down the streets of Konoha. Even though night has fallen, the roads were still quite busy. The shorter of the 2, though only a fraction of an inch, with blonde hair caught the citizens' and shinobi's attention, most of which were contemplating on his resemblance to the Yondaime, while the females just looked on with a slight blush and a little drool. It seems you're quite the stud around here, Naruto, Kakashi said while still reading his newest Ika novel. Naruto glared at his senpai with annoyance. Though getting stares of lust from women was sort of refreshing, it got really irritating in the long run. Especially since he could sense quite a number of kunoichis stalking him. Great, just what I need, fangirls. The blonde sighed. It's not that bad, Naruto. I mean, I know a lot of people who would do anything just to have the attention of the opposite sex. These women are flocking to you, take this chance that you have and relish it. He giggled pervertedly. Who does he know that would crave fangirls? The blonde thought. When you said that you know people that do anything to get attention of women, does that include Guy, his eyebrows, and his horrendous spandex? He asked curiously. Kakashi's giggling came to a halt. His face became serious before replying, let's not ask that question, okay? The first time I asked Guy that question, well, you can say that was the first and last time I ever asked him something pertaining to the opposite sex. Naruto shuddered at the possibilities that Guy could have done. Those rants about youth, those green spandex suits that showed way too much of something he didn't want to see, or that seemingly invincible genjutsu of a sunset that even Kakashi's Sharingan had a hard time with. The blonde was cut from his thoughts as they reached a complex with that sign of the leaf imprinted on the door. Kakashi closed his book and opened the door, motioning Naruto to follow suit. This is the Chunin/Jounin Lounge, pretty much self-explanatory. A place where we just relax for a bit, getting away from the stress we get on a normal shinobi basis. The cycloptic Jounin explained as they made their way through a hallway with doors on the left and right sides. The duo stopped at a door that had the words Chunin Jounin 12 written on a steel plate. Grabbing the doorknob, Kakashi made his way in with Naruto right behind him. The lounge was a large room with furniture and couches spread about with televisions. A few large-sized refrigerators were placed in respective corners which were undoubtedly filled with refreshments. There were numerous Chunins and Jounins happily chatting about non-shinobi topics, though their attentions were brought to the two arrivals. Kakashi's visible eye crinkled into a smile, while Naruto kept silent and looked at the crowd impassively. The duo walked in and through their fellow shinobis, all of whom returned to their conversations while still keeping some attention to the unfamiliar blonde. Looking around, the two saw some familiar faces huddled together. In a corner where two couches connected were Kurenai, Asuma, Genma, Guy, Anko, Hana, and Yugago. The group seemed to have been talking about an interesting topic. So let me get this straight, that little blonde gaki that I remember from the Chunin exams 3 years ago kicked Kakashi's ass even though he was using his Sharingan? Anko asked a little skeptically. How many times do I have to repeat myself, Anko? Yes, he beat Kakashi hands down. I was there along with Guy and his team, Genma, Asuma, Shizen, Sakura, Tsunade-sama and Jiraiya-sama. Kurenai responded with a hint of annoyance. Wow, to beat Kakashi-senpai on a full-out battle, he's probably one of the strongest in the village now. Yugago exclaimed. You can say that again. After all, he isn't the apprentice of the Gamma Sennin for nothing, Asuma said while lighting a cigarette. To think that the kid was with the rookie 9 along with Mai Oturo, he must be something. Hana spoke while sipping an unknown beverage. YOSH. Naruto-kun is truly the epitome of youth, Guy shouted, much to the irritation of his friends and comrades. Tone it down, will ya? This is a place to relax and kami, I really need it, Kakashi said while making his way towards the group. Ah. Kakashi, we were just talking about the bout you had with Naruto. It's probably going to be the talk of the village for a while, Genma said while chugging down a beer. What's going to be the talk of the village? Naruto asked, making his presence known. The group turned to the blonde teen. Most of them smiled and greeted him, while the ones who hadn't seen him yet stared on, namely Yugago, Anko and Hana. Kami-sama from cute brat to a lean, sexy stud, Anko thought while daydreaming of fantasies that only she was capable of actually doing. Calm yourself, girl, he's just Kakashi-senpai's student. Sure, he's handsome, sexy, and built with a nice body that I'd like to stop. Stop right there, Yugago thought, unconsciously breaking the sake bottle she had in her hand. Control yourself, Hana. He's just hot, wait. What am I thinking? But yes, he's so argh. Hana chugged her drink quickly while her thoughts were in conflict. They're talking about how you kicked my ass in a full-out spar during your Jounin promotion, Naruto, said Kakashi. The moment those words left the silver-haired Jounin's lips, the room became quiet as the Chunins and Jounins turned their gaze to the blonde teen, who was a little unnerved by the stares. Naruto quickly sat down next to Hana, much to her pleasure and frustration, hoping to avoid the looks that the other neens were giving him. Well now, pass me some sake, Guy, we need to celebrate my student's success, Kakashi stated as he sat down in a chair opposite to the couches. Guy nodded his head while taking out 3 sake bottles from a near refrigerator and a few saucers. The moment the sake was put on the table, the room came to life once again as the Nins started to converse with each other once more. Naruto sighed as the tension broke down, taking one of the saucers which he filled with sake. The others seated around him raised an eyebrow in question. "Are you sure you can drink, Naruto?" Asuma asked, his question reflecting the others' thoughts. His question was answered as the blonde quickly downed the sake like a pro. Setting down his saucer, he filled it with more sake before replying, "I started to drink about 1.5 years ago. Jiraiya-sensei told me that if I'm old enough to hold my ground in the shinobi world, then I should be old enough to drink." The others accepted his answer and took a drink themselves, each of them talking about the happenings in Konoha and in their personal lives. Naruto was stuck having a little interrogation by Anko, to which was stopped by Kurenai, Yugogo and Hana before things got out of hand. 2 hours passed and the room was nearly empty except for a few jounins and the group Naruto was currently hanging out with. "Well, I think we should call this a night," Genma said while raising himself shakily, obviously drunk. "Hey Genma, think you can help me with those two?" Kakashi said a little tipsy, pointing to a smashed Asuma and an unconscious Guy. Alright, he irritably replied. "That leaves Naruto with the women, just like I planned. Hataki, you genius bastard you." The silver-haired jounin snickered. The 2 jounins picked up their friends and bid farewell to the group, leaving Naruto with 4 intoxicated kunoichis. The blonde's sweat dropped at the sight before him. Anko was red in the face and could barely keep her eyes open. Hana was asleep while talking about doggy style with a spiky-haired blonde, to which Naruto didn't understand that it was him that she was referring to, and Yugogo was staring at him intensely while swaying a bit in her seat. His eyes looked to the remaining kunoichi, Yuhi Kurenai, who seemed to be faring better than the others, despite being tipsy. "Are they going to be alright, Kurenai-san?" Naruto asked, referring to the 3 drunken kunoichis. The red-eyed beauty looked at her friends before giving a sigh. "I knew that this would happen." "So what do we do now?" he asked. "Well, can you do me a favor and bring them to my apartment?" "That won't be a problem, but where do you live?" "I'll give you the directions as we go, though it's not that far from here, only a few blocks," she said while cautiously standing herself up. Naruto offered her his hand, to which she was grateful for. As he got a good grip, he lifted her into a bridal-style hold, much to the embarrassment of the kunoichi. "What are you doing?" she asked in surprise. "You seem to be a bit out of it right now, Kurenai-san. Plus, if I carry you, things would go a lot quicker than walking around being tipsy," Naruto responded. Kurenai took a moment, but nodded her head, accepting the answer in gratitude. After all, she really couldn't do much with her drunken state. Plus, his body feels so warm and comfortable. She was brought out of her musings as she heard an audible pop. Looking behind the blonde, she spotted 3 Kagebunshin, each carrying one of the passed-out kunoichis. Naruto looked at his clones before giving them a mental command. The clones nodded and all of them jumped down an open window. Naruto and company were jumping on top of rooftops that seemed a bit familiar to the blonde. He shook his head and marked it as coincidence as he rushed to the directions Kurenai gave him. "Turn right at the next rooftop and it should be the large apartment complex 2 blocks away from the Hokage Tower," she said while enjoying the night breeze as Naruto carried her to her abode. The blonde complied and headed towards the mentioned direction. As he reached his destination, he abruptly stopped and stared at the complex wide-eyed. "This is my apartment complex," he thought in surprise. He was jolted out of his thoughts by a pinch from Kurenai. "Naruto! Listen! My apartment room is on the 3rd floor, you can drop me off there," the red-eyed kunoichi said. The blonde complied with her request and shunshined to the 3rd floor along with his clones. As they reached the floor, Naruto set Kurenai down, to which she was grateful for the help, as she led them to her room. As Naruto proceeded, he spied his own apartment room, number 66, and couldn't help but yawn. "I really need some sleep, it's been a rather eventful day," he tiredly thought. He was jerked back to reality, as Kurenai stopped in her tracks before facing a door numbered 65. "Kami-sama, don't tell me," he thought. The kunoichi unlocked the door with her key and looked at Naruto and smiled. "Naruto, can you please bring them in?" The blonde looked at her and the door number 65 before replying, "Hi." The 3 clones entered the room and spied a large couch. Setting the 3 kunoichis in, they dispelled themselves in a puff of smoke. Naruto made his way out the door with Kurenai following behind him. "Arigato, Naruto, I hope we get to see more of each other as friends and coworkers now that you're jounin," she said. The blonde just smiled in response and turned to leave. But before he could make a step, Kurenai gave him a peck on the cheeks before shutting the door behind her. Naruto's eyes became the size of dinner plates, his hand caressing the cheek that Kurenai kissed. He stood there for a minute before composing himself as he opened the door to his own apartment. Women are so troublesome. With that thought, the blonde entered and shut the door behind him. Kirigakure, 8 p.m. A man in white and blue robes leaned himself onto a nearby wall in his office for support, his body stiff and his clothes soaked in crimson. His breath was ragged and his body in constant pain as his right hand felt over his wounded, bleeding stomach. The man's eyes looked around the room before he set his gaze at the form of his assailant in the corner of the office. His eyes hardened to an intense glare, though that was the only thing he could do to retaliate at his current situation. "Why?" he wheezed. The assassin said nothing and came out of the shadows in the corner to the center of the room. The light of the candles that lit the office at night revealed a tall, slender kunoichi, with shoulder-length green hair and eyes with a 6-foot katana strapped on her back, all dressed in a jounin uniform with a kiri hitaiite wrapped on her left arm. The kunoichi unsheathed her katana and pressed its edge at the man's neck. "Your days as a tyrant is over. It's about time for a new leader and free the people from your dirty grasps, Godame Mizukage," she said as she pressed the blade closer to his neck, drawing blood. The Mizukage's eyes widened slightly as his breath became wheezes for air. His body shifted in the direction of the assassin, and hardened his gaze at her. His hands clenched to a tight fist as he viewed the kunoichi in disgust. "I should have killed all of you. You and the Kiri Shinobigatana Shishinin Shu. I should have destroyed you all and those accursed Kekai Genkai clans years ago." The kunoichi was unfazed at his protests, and readied her katana to strike. "Are those your last words, Godane?" The Mizukage opened his mouth to speak but was stopped as the long katana impaled him through his heart. His eyes looked to the kunoichi in mild shock as he coughed out blood onto the wooden floor. The female jounin looked at the man's twitching body before she twisted her blade while it was still inside him, earning her a small gasp as the Godame slumped against the wall, dead. "That was a rhetorical question, my dear Godame-sama," she whispered sarcastically. The green-haired jounin pulled out her blade from the corpse, letting it collapse to the ground. With a quick flick of the wrist, she disposed of the excess blood on her blade before cleaning off the rest with a cloth from her pouch. She surveyed her sword for a moment before sheathing it back. "Don't you think that was a little sadistic there, Mahiro-chan?" A masculine voice spoke from behind. The said kunoichi turned around and spied a tall, feminine male shinobi dressed in standard Kiri jounin clothes, basically almost the same as Konoha's, with a shorter but larger sword strapped on his back. "He should have suffered more than that for what he put Kirigakure and our people through, Hiro-kun," she replied as she took out the hat of the Mizukage from one of the desk drawers and put it on. Hiro had a small smile at his lips as he walked towards the Kage's desk. "So what are your orders, Mahiro-chan? Or should I say, Rokudame Mizukage?" Mahiro looked out to the village through one of the windows. She smiled at the wondrous sight of the village at night, but quickly frowned at the poverty of its citizens. "Gather all available ninjas in the village for a meeting. Tell them that there's a new Mizukage calling the shots," she said while still staring down at the village. "First the leader of the Kiri no Shinobigatana Shishinin Shu, and now the leader of the village. You always were the type of person to take charge." Hiro chuckled before disappearing in a puff of smoke. Mahiro smiled slightly as she continued to gaze at the nightlife of Kirigakure with one thought. "I will make this village prosperous as it once was, soon Sensei, very soon." Next day, Konoha, 6 a.m. Naruto abruptly woke up to the sounds of a loud beeping from his alarm clock. He squinted his eyes at it and looked at the time before destroying the clock with a chakra-enhanced fist. "It's only 6 o'clock, still plenty of time to sleep," he thought groggily. With that happy thought, the blonde slumped down his head onto his pillow and fell back asleep. After 10 minutes, Naruto was once again woken up, this time by the sound of knocking on his door. He grudgingly stood up from bed and put on his pants before greeting his visitor. This better be good, or else he left the thread hanging as he opened the door. His visitor turned out to be Genma, whom was smiling back at him. "Just got promoted to jounin, and you're already threatening people." "Too early in the morning?" the blonde grumbled. "It comes with the job, so deal with it. Anyway, Hokage-sama's calling you, so be in her office in 10 minutes. Genma replied before he disappeared in a whirl of leaves. Naruto sighed as he closed the door and headed for his room for a change in clothing. Whatever Tsunade had planned for him, it had better be good because his head was still pounding from his late-night drinking fest. Tsunade sighed as she took a swig of her sake. The amount of paperwork before her was ridiculous, and it wasn't even daylight yet. She sighed once more as she rubbed her temples and looked at the message she received from a Kiri Jounin. It seems that Kirigakure was extending an invitation for an alliance with her village by the Rokudame Mizukage, or so what the message said. Still, for a village that stayed neutral for decades to propose an alliance, suddenly it's just odd, she thought as she finished her sake bottle. A knock disrupted her thoughts. Come in. The door opened, revealing a much more awake Naruto, who sat himself down onto a nearby chair. What did you call me for, Tsunade-bakan? A small vein throbbed in her forehead, but she continued on. I received an important message about Kirigakure. It seems that there's a new Mizukage leading the village, and he or she is proposing an alliance to us. Tsunade looked at Naruto, who was listening attentively and motioning her to continue. As you know, Kirigakure has stayed neutral for at least 7 decades, so it's a bit odd for it to suddenly asking for an alliance. So I'm making you a liaison between Konoha and Kiri. You will leave tomorrow for Kiri with one of their shinobis and be stationed there for at least a few weeks, she said as she tossed him the mission scroll which he caught. Wait. What about Sasuke? Isn't it almost time for the damn Hibi to take his body? Naruto exclaimed, as he rose from his seat while gripping the scroll tightly. Tsunade raised a hand to silence him, which he hesitantly complied as he sat himself back down. The Hokage looked at Naruto in the eye before replying. 6 months ago, it was reported by a number of Jiraiya's spies that Orochimaru has delayed taking over Sasuke's body by another 3 years. Naruto's eyes widened at this revelation before asking, why? Tsunade let out a breath she didn't know was holding, due to relief, as Naruto seemed to have calmed down enough to hear an explanation. She shifted into a more comfortable position before replying. According to the reports, Akatsuki has taken initiative against Orochimaru, severely injuring him and his forces. At that time, Sasuke was still not ready for the transfer, so he used another body to take host of. This gave Sasuke 3 more years before Orochimaru transfers again. Naruto relaxed himself at the news he just heard. Although Sasuke had betrayed him and the blonde no longer had any fleeting thoughts of saving him, he'd at least make sure that Orochimaru didn't get the Sharingan. The snake was already deadly enough, Konoha didn't need him to become more dangerous. It may sound cruel, but if things go out of hand I will end you myself, Sasuke, he grimly thought. Shaking away his thoughts, he decided to change the subject. Geez Byae-chan, I just got back and you're already sending me off. He chuckled. Tsunade smiled at the change of atmosphere. Gomen Naruto, but you should know that you're one of the strongest ninjas we have available. We need to make a good impression on Kiri, and having an alliance with them is also beneficial for us. Plus, according to Jiraiya, you have some powerful friends over there. Yeah, I do. Well, since I'm going tomorrow, I might as well get ready now, Jaeni, he grinned as he left through the door. The blonde Hokage waved at him dismissively as he disappeared behind the door and closed it with a quiet click. Naruto yawned as he made his way through the deserted streets of Konoha. His stomach grumbled as he walked to his apartment. There weren't any restaurants open this early, so he was only left with homemade food. But he had no problem with that. His cooking skills were good, that he was confident of. The blonde stopped dead in his tracks as the thought of cooking came to mind. One thing was needed for cooking, groceries, and he didn't have any. Cursing himself, Naruto jumped to the nearest rooftop in search for closest convenience store open. Kirigakure, 3 p.m. The alliance proposal has reached Konoha, Rokudame-sama. A Jounin reported as he stood attention in the middle of the Mizukage office. This was the same Jounin who gave Tsunade the proposal. Good, you're dismissed. The green-haired Rokudame responded. The Jounin nodded and left through the door, leaving a satisfied Mizukage in the room. Mahiro smiled as she recounted the meeting with the village shinobis. They've more than welcomed her as the Rokudame, and were putting a lot of effort into returning Kiri to its former glory. A knock on the door caught her attention as she signaled the visitor in. Hiro came through the door with a folder filled with papers. I have the information on the other members, Mizukage-sama, he said. Please, Hiro-kun, you know you can be informal with me. Mahiro chuckled. Very well, Mahiro-chan, Hiro said as he made his way to her desk, setting down the folder onto it. Mahiro opened the folder, revealing individual shinobi files, and browsed through them. Hiro decided to speak as she was skimming through the papers. It seems that Momochi Zabuza and Kurisuke Raiga have passed away. Hashigaki Kisame has been reported being in Akatsuki, but there have been rumors that he left the organization not too long ago. Finally, both Utada Buntenmaru and Seizenekin have disappeared from the map. Buntenmaru-san shouldn't be hard to spot. I'm sure if he hears the news that Kiri has a new Kage leading them his interest would be piqued. I'm more worried about Seize-sensei. Mahiro said while frowning at a random Jounen's file. Don't worry about Nei-chan, I have an idea on how to get her, Hiro said thoughtfully. Mahiro raised an eyebrow before putting down the papers she had in her hands. You do know that finding her isn't hard, it's persuading her. Like I said, I have an idea, he said. And may I inquire as to how you're going to do it? The Mizuki asked with interest. Let's just say I'm calling in a favor from a friend of mine and we'll leave it at that, he replied with a smile much to the irritation of his Mizuki. Mahiro pictured herself lunging at him and beating him with a blunt kunai, but pushed those thoughts aside. I'll let it slide this time, Hiro-kun, but watch yourself. This caused Hiro to pale slightly while laughing nervously at the glare he was getting from his leader. Well then, moving on. I want you to go to Konoha to bring back a liaison shinobi that will be staying with us for a while. We can't afford to screw this up, we need an alliance with Konoha to increase trade for the village. That good-for-nothing Godame damaged our economy badly, and we need every help we can get, she said to him. Hiro nodded in response. When do I leave? They expect you there tomorrow, so anytime you want to leave as long as you arrive on time, she replied. I see, well then I guess I got to prepare, Ja-ni, Hiro said as he disappeared once again in a puff of smoke. Mahiro stared at the dissipating cloud of smoke before rummaging through the files Hiro handed her once again. Her eyes landed on the files of 7 people, the members of the Kiri Shinobigatana Shishinin Shu. 2 assured members with myself included, 1 is a maybe, 2 are questionable and the other 2 are dead. This is really going to be a pain in the ass, she groaned. Grabbing Zabuza's and Raiga's file, she set them aside before stamping them as deceased. That left the Kiri Shinobigatana with 2 definite openings and another 3 spots that could be filled in if they were successful in bringing the original members back. Buntenru wouldn't be hard to get back on their side as the only reason he left was because of the Godame. It was Kisame and Seze that were worrying her. Both were undoubtedly the 2 of the 3 strongest members, Buntenru as the 3rd. The only reason that Mahiro was in command of them were because of her strategic and leadership skills. The green-haired Rokudame was too focused on the papers before her that she didn't notice the form of Jiraiya leaning on one of the walls. The Gamma Sennin, seeing her distress, decided to expose himself. You just started being Mizuki and you're already drowned yourself with paperwork. You're too much of a workaholic, Mahiro-chan, he said as he made his way to the Kage's desk. The Rokudame's head quickly jolted upright in surprise, and in one quick motion, she dropped her papers and unsheathed her sword, pointing it at the Sannin. It's just me, calm down, he said, seemingly unfazed. Mahiro, who composed herself from her initial shock, took a good look at the shinobi in front of her before her eyes widened slightly. Jiraiya-sama? The one and only, he exclaimed as he pumped his fist to the air. Gomen! I thought it was an intruder. She grinned sheepishly as she sheathed back her sword and relaxed in her chair. It's all right, that's what I get for coming in unannounced, he replied as he sat himself down on the couch beside the desk. So what brings you here, Jiraiya-sama? She asked as she took out 2 sake bottles. It's as if all Kages kept sake in their drawers. Taking the bottle Mahiro was offering, Jiraiya took a quick sip before replying, I actually came here to check up on you. I was here earlier today and heard about a new Mizuki. So I came here and found you burying yourself in papers with that Kage hat resting on your head. Well, the reason I'm working this hard is because my predecessor has left Kirigakure in shambles, she said as she poured sake into a saucer. Yeah, the Godame was nothing more than a greedy bastard, always looking out for himself and using his position to get what he needs. I'm surprised that Kiri lasted 10 years with him as Mizuki, he replied. That's why I need to work fast enough to get this village back on its feet. We don't know how long we can last with our current economy, that's why we've sent an alliance proposal to your village, she stated as she downed her saucer. Still, you didn't have to take everything all at once. I mean, you could have sent the proposal to Konoha tomorrow or later on instead of worrying about it now. Trust me, you'll live longer with less stress, the Sannin said. Well, what's done is done. After all, we need all the help we can get as soon as possible. Anyway, Jiraiya-sama, I was going to ask for your aid later on this week, but luckily you're here now, so I can cut to the chase. Can I ask you for a favor? Mahiro asked as she threw away her sake bottle. Go on, he replied as he motioned his hand. Your spy network covers every single country, shinobi or not, am I correct? She asked inquisitively. Jiraiya only nodded in response, trying to see where this is going. I was wondering if you could find some people for me, she said as she handed him 3 sets of files. Jiraiya took the files and looked through them, his eyes slightly widened. You want to reassemble the Kiri Shinobigatana? Hi. Itada Buntenmaru, Hashigaki Kisame, and Murakama Seze. Those three were vital members to the Shishinin Shu, and as of now we have no leads on them. Though Buntenmaru-san would be easy to find along with Seze-nekin, we don't have enough manpower to look for them because we're preoccupied with reforming Kiri. She explained. The Sannin pondered for a moment before replying, so you need me to find them because I can cover basically almost every country efficiently and quickly. That about sums it up. But don't confront them, I only want their locations. She stated while giving a thoughtful look. Jiraiya raised an eyebrow. So you're going to fetch them yourself? Mahiro nodded in response. Hi. It would be best if they hear from another member of the Shinobigatana. What about Seze? She's going to be the most problematic even with you or Hiro. The Sannin asked. The Rokudan just smiled as she replied. Hirokun says that he has an idea of how to get her back, and I say we trust him. Jiraiya just stared at her for a moment before he smiled. Good old Hiro. He chuckled. Jiraiya gulped down his sake before throwing it away. He stood up from the couch and made his way to the exit. Well, I'm glad to see you're okay, and if that's all you need then I'll be off. I'll stay here for a while for some important business before I catch Hiro on the way back to Konoha, he said with a smile. Arigato, Jiraiya-sama. But what's this important business of yours? She asked with a smile. The Sannin opened the door and looked back to Mahiro with a mischievous grin. Research, what else? Mahiro's eyebrows twitched as she watched the door close. Female indignation welled up inside of her as she clenched her fist and gritted her teeth. Pervert. Konoha, 7 p.m. Naruto walked towards the direction of Ichiraku for a well-earned meal after rigorous training. He massaged his left hand as memories of his spar with Guy came into mind. Although he was now stronger than him and was more than capable of beating him in a straight battle, doesn't mean that the green-clad Jounin couldn't do some extreme damage. I just had to catch that 5 gates empowered kick, didn't I? He thought sarcastically. He entered Ichiraku and was greeted at the sight of 3 familiar faces and a rather large dog eating at a nearby table. Naruto approached the table silently with a small smile on his face. How's it going, Kiba, Shino, Hinata and Akamaru? He asked. The members of Team 8 abruptly stiffened before each turning their heads towards the blonde. Naruto just smiled in response while giving a small wave at the team's silence. Kiba was the first to break the silence. Naruto. How's it going, man? Gone 3 years and look at you. Akamaru barked happily along as if giving his own greeting. I could ask the same of you. Nice jacket, by the way, he replied while pointing to the leather jacket Kiba now wore. Heh, thanks. You don't look too bad yourself, now that you got rid of that hideous eyesore of a jumpsuit. Kiba heartily replied, to which Naruto snorted. It's good to see you again, Naruto, Shino calmly said. Good to see you too, Shino, though I almost didn't recognize you there, the blonde sheepishly replied. Shino only raised an eyebrow before tilting his head slightly as if nodding. Naruto shook his head at the bug user's display. Shino will always be Shino. His eyes turned over to Hinata, whose arms were tied with Kiba's, causing him to raise an eyebrow. Hello, Naruto-kun. Glad to see you're back, she greeted with a smile and surprisingly, without blushing. Good to see you too, Hinata, Naruto responded as he eyed her and the Inuzuka. The blonde continued to look between Hinata and Kiba, confusing the two Sennins, before speaking with a mischievous tone. So I see you two have gotten together, huh? Ho ho ho, Kiba you dog, I knew you couldn't keep your hormones down for long. Hinata blushed a nice shade of crimson at his remark, while a flustered Kiba was trying to stutter a retort. Naruto and Shino looked at the couple in amusement for a few minutes before they heard Ayam's voice. What can I get for you today, Naruto-kun? She asked warmly. Hinata and Kiba silently thanked Ayam for taking away the blonde's attention, stopping their moment of awkwardness and embarrassment. Give me 4 bowls of pork ramen for takeout, Ayam-chan, he replied with a large smile. Ayam nodded before entering the kitchen to tell her father of the order. Naruto once again turned his attention to the new couple, much to their dismay. So when did this happen? He asked curiously. Kiba started to stutter again, and Hinata poked her fingers together while in a blush much like her prior self. Seeing as his teammates won't answer, Shino spoke for them instead. It was about a year ago when Kiba actually got the courage to ask her out on a date after a training session with Kurenai-sensei, he explained. I see, so did anything interesting happen during the time I was gone between the two? Other than the occasional tongue wars, there hasn't been anything interesting. Although there was a time where Kiba fell over Hinata, putting both of them into a compromising position in the presence of Hayashi-sama. He said in a monotone voice. How did you know that? Kiba shouted incredulously while pointing an accusing finger to his friend as Hinata's blush grew darker. Shino raised his right index finger and held it out. A Kikai bug crawled on top of the finger before it flew off. A bug told me, he simply stated. The Inuzuka's face became flustered again as he sputtered, You were spying on us? I was only doing it so I can check up on you too, he replied. Naruto chuckled at their bickering. Shino seemed to have adopted the Nikki role in the group. Though with Kiba and Hinata, teammate needed a big brother, and the Aburames seemed to be the best choice. Unfortunately for them, the bug user was a big brother then you can't lie to because the guy had eyes everywhere thanks to his bugs. 10 minutes passed and Ayam came out of the kitchen holding a box containing 4 bowls of pork ramen. Naruto, being the ramen freak, caught the scent and quickly appeared next to the register with his wallet out and ready. That's about 200 yen, Naruto-kun. She smiled as she handed the blonde his order. Naruto happily accepted his order and handed the payment over to Ayam. I'll see you all later, he yelled as he turned to leave. Alright, see ya, Naruto, Kiba said as Akamaru barked alongside him. Shino nodded and Hinata waved at him along with Ayam. Naruto smiled in response as he left the restaurant and headed home. Something told him that tomorrow was going to be interesting, and when he had these feelings it always tended to be true. The Jinchuriki looked at his ramen order as hunger claimed him. Naruto pushed all other thoughts to the side as he increased his pace to his apartment. He hoped to get inside before Kurenai or any of the other kunoichi spots him enter the room next to the Kurenais. He didn't need Anko barging in his apartment trying to sodomize him at this time of night, or any time at all. Nope, he didn't need any hot women barging in. Nope, not him hot women. The blonde Jounin halted himself in his tracks. What the hell am I thinking? It must be because I hanged out with Jiraiya too much. Yeah, that's got to be it. There's no way I'd have thoughts on gorgeous kunoichi Shia no. Stop. Bad thoughts. Naruto started for his apartment once again, this time at a higher pace. He rushed in hopes for a cold shower. Kami-sama knows he needs it. Crisp clean air, a twilight sky and empty streets was the sight Naruto was greeted as he walked a little groggily towards the Hokage Tower for his mission. It was around 6:30 a.m., a little early for him, but it was better than being late. He continued to walk for a few minutes until he stopped in his tracks as he came upon Konoha's academy. It was still the same in all these years, nothing has changed and he felt a little bit of comfort about that fact. It also reminded him of Irika, whom he hasn't gotten the chance to see yet. It seems that I'll have to wait for a little while longer before I can see you again, Irika-sensei. He inwardly sighed. With that though, Naruto continued his trek towards the tower in a faster pace. It was useless to think about these thoughts, as he could catch up with his friends later. Right now he had a mission, and unlike his sensei he doesn't like to be late. This is a surprise. I didn't think you'd be here this early. I mean, I just got to my office just a half hour ago, Tsunade said to her 2 guests, Jiraiya and Hiro. Well, we have Gamabunta and Jiraiya-sama to thank for that, Hiro replied. I see even Jiraiya has his uses sometimes. She chuckled. Yeah, considering he's a lecher, he responded with a grin. Yes, to think that a man with a high rank and a notable title would go so low just to appease his primal urges. I guess you can't judge a person with their title nowadays. Especially with Jiraiya-sama. True. Jiraiya's eyebrow began to twitch as he watched the other 2 insult him openly with each other. No respect at all. Tsunade and Hiro continued on with their jeers at Jiraiya for a good 5 minutes, sending a stab to the Sanin's heart after every joke. Jiraiya was about to protest when he heard a comment about his manhood but was stopped as the office door opened. Naruto entered looking a little worse for wear as his slightly baggy eyes and droopy face showed his fatigue. I'm here for my mission, Tsunade Bakon. He yawned slightly. A vein throbbed in her forehead, but she let the insulting greeting pass. It was after all too early to put man-shaped holes in her office walls. It's good to see you again, Naruto-kun, Hiro greeted. Naruto's eyes widened for a moment, as he looked towards the raven-haired man seated next to the Hokage's desk. His lips formed a smile as he saw his Kenjutsu-sensei waving at him. Hiro-sensei. What are you doing here? I could ask you the same thing, he asked with curiosity. Well, I'm here for my mission, something about going to Kiri. He yawned once again. Hiro's eyes widened before he spoke. Wait, you're the liaison for Kiri and Konoha? Yeah, wait, how do you know? The blonde said while he pointed a finger at the Kiri nin. Hiro stood up from his seat. Reaching to one of his vest pockets, he pulled out his Kiri headband and tied it onto his right arm. Well, it seems you're coming with me. Naruto opened his mouth to respond but was cut off by Tsunade. Naruto, he will be the one bringing you to Kiri. The blonde jounin shut his lips as his question was answered and turned his attention to Tsunade. The Godame then turned her head towards Hiro. I think that he should suffice for you, right? Hi. Naruto-kun is a perfect candidate, he said with large grin and a little glee. You're rather excited about this, Hiro, Jiraiya said, making his presence known again. I was about to ask you if I could take Naruto-kun with me along with the liaison, but seeing that he is the liaison, it's killing two birds with one stone. The Kiri nin explained. Can I ask what was the reason that you needed him? Tsunade questioned with slight suspicion. Naruto stayed silent as he watched the conversation between the three. Though he inwardly groaned as he sensed Tsunade's suspicion and doubt of Hiro's motives that included him, she could be too much of a mother hen at times. Naruto has a gift with people, as you know. It seems that he can change other people's perspectives and can bring them to his side. I was hoping if he could do that to a very dear person of mine, Hiro explained with a sad tone at the end. Tsunade looked at him in understanding. She was after all one of the people the blonde was able to change for the better. Jiraiya, however, had his eyes the size of a raisin gan as he slowly came to a realization of what he was implying. Seze the Sannin said in an almost whisper. Hiro nodded sadly, leading the two blondes, Naruto and Tsunade, confused on what was going on. Jiraiya closed his eyes as he pondered on the new information. Naruto could definitely help, being the passionate and kind-hearted man he was. After all, he did work wonders with Tsunade. And his student wasn't a pushover either, as he could now probably hold his own against any of the Kiri Shinobigatana if things get violent with their other members, though he hoped it wouldn't come to that. Jiraiya opened his eyes and gave out a sigh as he massaged his temples. Like Hiro said, Naruto was the perfect candidate for this mission, strong and charismatic to a fault. But if Seze is involved... Listen, whatever Hiro-sensei needs help on, I'll do it. We can call it payment for teaching me, Naruto said, breaking the tension in the air. But Swanda spoke but was cut off by Naruto. I accepted this mission, Bakan, and I never go back on what I take. That is after all my nindo, he said with a tone of finality. The Gamma Sannin looked at his apprentice and smiled. Determination was one of his strong points. It always was and will always will be. Though he would soon be dealing with one of the strongest members of the Kiri Shinobigatana, if what Hiro said was true, then Naruto may have bit more than he can chew. But maybe, just maybe he could do it. The blonde always did face incredible odds. With that train of thought, Jiraiya made his choice. It's okay, Tsunade, Naruto is the logical choice for this mission. I'm sure everything would be fine, the Sannin said confidently. Tsunade looked to Jiraiya questioningly. Seeing the Gamma Sannin's seriousness, she nodded to her teammates' reassurance on her surrogate little brother. It doesn't matter if Naruto was stronger than Kakashi, that didn't mean that she couldn't still be overprotective. But if Jiraiya's confident about his decision, then it should be alright. It should. Alright, Naruto, go to the west gate in half an hour, be ready by then. Hi. I'll see you in half an hour, Hiro-sensei, Naruto said as he disappeared in a puff of smoke. A moment of silence passed as the smoke dissipated into the air. Jiraiya sat himself before Tsunade's desk and motioned Hiro to do the same, to which Kiri nin complied. Now, care to elaborate on what else you needed from your former, and my current student? Jiraiya asked. Hiro sighed as he saw Tsunade's attention focused on him as well. Her eyes were staring intensely as if she was interrogating him. He straightened himself up and made himself comfortable before he opened his mouth to reply. This was going to be a long 30 minutes. Food check. Weapons check. Reading material damn where I check. Clothes check. Naruto carefully packed all his necessities into separate bags and sealed them inside a scroll. He liked to pack heavy but travel light. It was a habit that he picked up ever since learning the basics of sealing from Jiraiya. Though he can't call himself a master of seals, or even a competent user, he was satisfied with his current knowledge. It served his needs well. The blonde looked at the clock that read 7 o'clock. Cursing under his breath, he stuffed the scroll that contained his belongings in his vest pocket and bolted out of his apartment. He threw the front door open and slammed it shut and locked in the same second. As he rushed for the west gate, he failed to notice a silver-haired shinobi in the hallway whom was staring intently at the blonde and the room he came from. A mischievous glint came to Kakashi's eye as he looked at Naruto's apartment, which was directly next door to Kurenai's. Naruto, living next door to one of the most famous ice queens of Konoha, I never expected that. Oh, the amount of blackmail I could have. You are a bastard, Hatake, he inwardly smirked. What are you doing here, Kakashi? The copy Nin turned around to see Kurenai looking at him with slight confusion. Kakashi quickly racked his brain for an answer. What was he doing here in the first place? Ah. Hokage-sama has a mission for you, Anko and Genma. She needs you in her office in an hour, he quickly said in a nonchalant tone. Kurenai nodded and muttered a thanks before entering her apartment. Kakashi watched as the door closed completely before letting out a sigh. The Genjutsu mistress always had a short fuse in the morning, and he didn't want to be in the receiving end of her wrath when she explodes. He experienced it once, and it wasn't something worth repeating. With that thought, the Sharingan wielder jumped to the rooftop of the bordering building and headed for home. There was little use in pondering these thoughts when he had a new Ika to finish. Naruto arrived at the west gate and saw Hiro, Jiraiya and Tsunade waiting for him. He rubbed the back of his head and smiled sheepishly as he saw Tsunade's slight annoyance for his late appearance. Are you all packed, Naruto-kun? Hiro asked questioningly, seeing no bags on the blonde. Yeah, I got them packed in a scroll, he replied. Hiro only nodded in understanding. Naruto suddenly stiffened as he felt Tsunade's arms encircling him in a tight embrace. They stayed together for a minute before coming apart. Be safe out there, and don't always go into situations head-on like you always do, she said in a tone that befit a worrying mother. You worry too much, Pekan, Naruto replied, a little peeved at her overprotective nature. Jiraiya came up to him next and put a hand on his shoulder. Listen, Gaki, Kiri is still in the process of re-establishing itself, and from what Hiro said there are still some in Kirigakure that are loyal to the deceased Godame. So there's a high chance that you'll be forced to battle, and if push come to shove, don't be hesitant to use your Jujutsu. Naruto was about to protest but was stopped as the Sannin looked at him with a dead serious gaze. If things do go for the worse, then I will. But only on dire times. The blonde responded in a serious manner. That will do, said Jiraiya as he walked back to Tsunade, whom was leaning on the gate. Don't worry, I'll keep him in check and make sure he's a good boy, Hiro said, earning him a light glare from Naruto. The blonde Jounin took one last glance at Konoha, a small smile forming in his lips, but he was tugged from his moment of peace by Hiro. It's time. Yeah, Naruto said. With that last word, both Nins disappeared in a puff of smoke. It was an hour into the journey of non-stop high-speed traveling. Naruto looked to Hiro and was surprised when he looked barely winded. Then again he was a member of the Kiri Shinobigatana. Their trek continued on for another half hour, both in a comfortable silence. Hiro pushed extra chakra into his feet as leaped high into the air and looked in the direction of Kiri. Naruto looked at him with a questioning glance but shrugged it off as he continued. The Kiri Shinobigatana member smiled at the thought of home as he smelled the slightly salty air that told them that they were near the shores of Konoha. But his musings of home were cut short as he felt a chill in his spine. Stop right here, Naruto-kun, Hiro said as he landed onto a high tree branch. Naruto complied and landed onto a tree a few meters away, pulsing chakra to his feet to stick onto the wood. I need you to summon Gamabunta, the Kiri Nin said. Why? The blonde asked in confusion. We can make it to Kirigakure faster with Gamabunta than we can with our own 2 feet. With him, we can make it there before sundown, the Kiri Nin explained. Are you just giving an excuse just to be lazy? Naruto asked as he narrowed his eyes. Of course not, he said as he crinkled his eyes to a smile in a Kakashi-like manner. Though in the inside he wasn't as cheerful as his exterior. He had, after all, suddenly felt that something bad was about to happen, a sort of premonition. Though he wasn't the superstitious type, every time he got this feeling it always came true in the end, and that was enough for him to trust his gut feeling in times like these. Naruto, unaware of Hiro's inner thoughts, drew blood from his thumb as he went through seals for summoning. Kuchios no Jutsu. A large amount of smoke burst forth, hiding the blonde from sight. As the smoke fanned out into the open air, Naruto found himself on top of the boss of all toads, Gamabunta. What do you need, Gaki? He said in his raspy voice. I need you to take me to Kiri, and I need you to do it fast, the blonde said. What am I now, a royal carriage? First Jiraiya and now you two have no respect at all, the toad replied in a peeved tone as he puffed out smoke from his pipe. Gamabunta, please, Hiro asked in a serious and pleading manner. The Toad looked at Hiro in the eyes and saw anxiety and a sliver of worry. Their staring match lasted for a minute before Gamabunta took another puff from his pipe. Fine. But there better be a good reason, he said, conceding to their request. Hiro smiled gratefully as he jumped up on Gamabunta's head next to Naruto. Make sure to get a good grip, because this is going to be a bumpy ride, the Toad said as his hind legs readied for a jump. Before even getting a confirmation from Naruto or Hiro, Gamabunta took a leap into the air and headed for their destination at full speed. Hiro gripped tightly onto Gamabunta's jacket as the Toad raced through High no Kuni, Land of Fire, hoping that this feeling was just that, a feeling and nothing more. His grip tightened as he peered to the direction of his home once again. He'll find out soon enough. So you not only failed in killing the traitors but also failed to bring the Nibi Jinchuriki, spoke a shadowed figure. We were careless and we paid for it. It will not happen again, Shusho, Zetsu said. The leader of Akatsuki stayed silent as he closed his eyes and thought. Zetsu continued to look at his master, awaiting for further orders. The shadowed figure opened his eyes as he spoke again. Do not worry about it for now. We have 6 of the 9 Bijus, with only the Ichibi, Nibi and Kyubi left. It will only be a matter of time before we have them too. As you say, Shusho. But what about the traitors? They have taken with them the rings necessary for the extraction. We are now missing 4. Zetsu stated. The leader looked at him and pulled out a ring and tossed it to the grass Nuknin. Give that to your subordinate, it is time to make him a member. That ring, as you know, formerly belonged to Orochimaru before we retrieved it from him half a year ago. Make sure that we don't lose that ring this time. And what of the traitors? The grass Nin asked. I shall deal with him myself, he replied as he disappeared completely into darkness of the Akatsuki base. Suddenly a scroll shot out from the shadows and was caught by Zetsu. That is your next assignment. The leader's voice rang throughout the room. The grass Nuknin opened the scroll as he began to read. His eyes widened as he read the first few words. Proposal of partnership. His continued to read for a minute before closing the scroll, having read all its contents. Zetsu turned around and slowly disappeared into the dark depths of the base, preparing to leave for his newest task. Otoge Cure. Gamabunta leaped on the surface of the ocean water in the direction towards Kiri. The Toad looked at the sky to see that it was late in the afternoon. At this pace they would make it before nightfall. Naruto was sitting on top of the boss Toad's head, gripping himself on the slippery skin through chakra. Next to him was Hiro, who kept silent during the journey, though the blonde didn't know why, but he kept it to himself, not wanting to bother his Kenjutsu sensei from his thoughts. An hour of hopping passed, and they could see the outline of Kirigakure in front of them. Seeing their destination, Gamabunta fastened the pace with renewed vigor. They were now only a few miles away from hitting shore, but that's when the boss Toad smelled a peculiar scent, the scent of smoke. The giant Toad quickly raised his head in the direction of Kiri, only to see vague pillars of gray smoke rising from land. Damn it, I hate it when I'm right, Hiro cursed as he saw the smoke originating from his village. Gamabunta, we need to land now, Naruto commanded with a hint of anxiousness. The boss Toad ignored the blonde's rude attitude and complied as he took one last giant leap. Gamabunta landed onto the shore with a loud crash and a slight tremor. Naruto groaned. They just basically announced their arrival to possible enemy shinobis.